Chuck. You know Chuck? It's Marvin. Your cousin Marvin Berry. Wait, you know that new podcast you've been waiting for? Well, listen to this.
Well, hello there, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Confused Breakfast Podcast. Do you remember the pure joy of a trip to the video rental store as a kid?
Yes.
The excitement of walking down the aisles, browsing the names in the artwork, and finally picking out the movie you were going to take home with you. Yeah. Sure, it's hard to beat the ease of the modern era and streaming platforms where you don't even have to leave your house, but there was something truly special about making that trip, picking a movie out by hand, and watching it when you got home. Not too early, though, because you sleep in on Saturday. On this podcast, we revisit and dissect some of our favorite childhood movies from that magical era to see if they still move us the way they did as kids. I'm your host, Mike Schulte, and joining me, as always, two dudes who aren't ready for this, but their kids are going to love it. Shaun Pryor and AJ Venz, how the heck are ya?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the first movies I will ever show a potential child of mine.
Okay.
I'll be honest. Yeah, why not? This is accessible.
I think it's accessible.
Yeah.
It might be awkward between your wife and son.
Very
that's
true.
Fine.
Very
so
true.
you think he's going to have a son first?
I'm going to be bold.
Okay.
He looks like he's a maker of men.
Potent semen.
Yes.
Wait, what?
The seed is strong. Yes.
How'd you like our little intro there? That was the Harry Waters Jr.
Dude.
guy that played Marvin Berry, reached out and hooked us up with a nice little intro. We were talking about that. And
that's nuts.
That's so important.
So rad.
So rad to
We're
have
not even
that.
in the episode yet, and he actually sang Earth Angel.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was not a recording. He's actually in our studio right now just staring at us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
What's up, Harry?
We forgot to get him a chair, actually, so he has to stand this whole time.
The reason that is so important is because on this episode, we discuss one of the most popular movies of all time, the first movie in the greatest trilogy ever made.
You could argue.
A movie that was nominated for 4 Oscars and is rated number 30 on IMDb's Ultimate List. A movie that took place 37 years ago to the day.
Woo!
We're, of course, talking about 1985's Back to the Future. And if you are new to this podcast, we will be reviewing this movie with a modern eye, scene by scene. But in order to do that properly, we must first discuss it with pure nostalgia. AJ, tell us the first time you saw this movie, what your nostalgic rating was.
This movie, when I was a young lad, I think this is something that I want to say that we rented it. I feel like I remember the VHS. Looking at with the sticker on the front of it and everything, the Back to the Future font, I think that more specifically, like my mom was. This is one of those movies. She was like, "Well, watch," like trying to get my freaking attention. You know what I mean? Oh, well, watch, because see, like this is what happened. Like, see what happens. Like, watch what he's gonna do. He's gonna do this thing.
About it for
she
you.
was excited about it for me.
That's
you know,
cool.
and I think she really wanted me to be interested in it, and same with like my brothers and stuff. But I feel like I remember almost always watching this with like a family member, and but that's very specific, like my mom or like saying during some family time, you know. So that being said, and watching the movie, I thought some parts were kind of boring. I was like, the 50s? Well, this is the 90s. And so I don't know. Where's the CD players and
then the rest of them, you're like, the 80s?
The 80s? So long ago. I don't know. So, but thinking back to it, I think I was interested. I thought it was fascinating, but then at the same time, I didn't really get it as a kid. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna give this a 6.6.
Nostalgically, a 6.6 for AJ. Shaun, how about you, man?
This was an uncle's basement tape. Just like a lot of these movies that we cover, this is just one that me and my brother would pop in down there as our parents drank and ate for family gatherings. We would go down there and watch movies, and this is one of them. Yeah, I mean, it's just so much fun. Like the rest of those movies that we watched down there, we just liked movies. I'm gonna say a 7.
7 for Shaun. This is such a visceral memory of the first time I watched this movie. It was definitely late 80s because there was the to be continued at the end.
Yeah.
Initially, this did not have it. They intended for this to end.
Right.
And when they saw what they had on their hands, they went back and added on the VHS and everything. They added to be continued. We rented this as a family, and it was a literal. Everyone was just enthralled by it, and at the end of the movie, it was just like, to be continued. I mean, I remember it, and we immediately bought the VHS. I have maybe watched this movie the most of any movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm a straight up nostalgic 10. From the first time I saw this movie, this was my favorite movie ever.
I gotta imagine that this is just like, this is one of those movies that I believe is in everyone's veins. Like they're just born knowing that this, like even not even watching it, they're just born with this in their mind. And as they watch it, they're like, oh, yeah.
I'm going to say that if you somehow could calculate it, this is the most watched movie in history.
I would probably agree.
Yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, other than Shawshank Redemption, because it's always on TBS.
Yeah.
It'd probably be Back to the Future.
We know drama.
Forced to watch it.
We do have an executive producer, Bud Larsen. He said, I remember watching this on cable TV, probably in the late 80s. I would have been 8 or 9. I remember thinking how awesome it would be to go back in time to see how much our little town in Wisconsin changed in 30 to 50 years, or do the same as the movie, see what my family was like when they were kids. We owned it on VHS and then DVD. This was a good time. Whenever we watched it, friends would say, think McFly. Anytime someone wouldn't know an answer to something. My nostalgic rating is a 9.5. So as a group, that is an 8.28 nostalgically for us, which takes us pretty close. That's going to be number 10. That is nostalgically just below Mortal Kombat, just above Spaceballs, is how we feel about this nostalgically.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
This all makes perfect sense. We will, of course, throw away the nostalgia and do this with a modern eye.
I
But
have
first,
a feeling that might stay the same or increase.
we're going to find out.
Just going to say.
We're going to find out. So next, it's time to learn all the pertinent, important details of the movie. Shaun, what do you got on this one, man?
Produced by Neil Canton, Bob Gale, Kathleen Kennedy, Frank Marshall, and Steven Spielberg. You guys heard of him?
No.
Oh, well, you might.
Okay.
Written by Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. Cinematography by Dean Cundy.
Hey.
Beanie.
Roadhouse, Halloween. He's Jurassic Park.
Killing it.
Fucking amazing. Literally, like, I think super underrated, to be honest. Music by Alan Silvestri. Edited by Harry Kirkimadias. Oh, there's more. No, there's more. Don't wait.
Okay.
Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, Tom Wilson, Claudia Wells, Mark McClure, Wendy Jo Sperber, George DeCenzo.
I feel like that wasn't hard to say.
But it's fun. But it's
Sperber?
fun. Wendy Jo Sperber. All right. It's put a smile on my face. Francis Lee McCain, James Tolkien, Casey Samasico, Billy Zane, Courtney Gaines, Jason Hervey, Harry Waters Jr., who you heard at the beginning of this episode.
Hey.
I think this is the third Courtney Gaines movie we've done.
Yeah.
And he's not like prominent in any of them.
No, I really don't think so. But this is the third movie we've done with him.
He's
in
getting on like Rick Ducommun levels.
I know, right? Sooner or later, we'll do Children of the Corn, and you'll have a way better role.
Well.
Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis always wanted to make a time travel movie, but didn't ever have a clever angle for the idea. While looking at his father's yearbook, Bob Gale discovered his dad was the class president and thought to himself, I wonder if I would have been friends with my dad if we were in high school together.
I fucking love that.
Voila.
I fucking love that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Zemeckis and Gale would write day in and day out, going as far as to write index cards on every one of these scenes and test out the dialogue together before they had a solid script. The writing duo sent the script to a lot of studios who did not get the project. A lot of studios at the time were greenlighting teen sex comedies at the time, and this was not that. They brought it to like the same studios that had Fast Times at Ridgemont
like
High and
Porky's
Porky's
and shit like that.
and Revenge of the Nerds. They were all wanting
Where's
to
the
greenlight.
nude scene?
Yeah. They all, I mean,
Where's the news
as we'll get into the movie, like you can see that kind of brimming. You can see like the studio wanting a lot of that. But we'll get to that. They brought the project to Steven Spielberg, who of course got it right away. Along with Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy, the three were executives for Spielberg's company Amblin, which was a subset of Universal. What does 1944's classic Double Indemnity have to do with Back to the Future? I'll tell you. While production was halted, Zemeckis made Romancing the Stone, which was a success. Coming off of that, Zemeckis wanted to return to Back to the Future, but the rights were with Columbia. Columbia wanted to make a pseudo-remake of Double Indemnity called Big Trouble, but doing so would violate the rights that Universal had owned. In exchange for the rights to Double Indemnity, Universal got Back to the Future rights. So in exchange for the rights to this classic noir movie, they got the rights back for Robert Zemeckis to make Back to the Future. I think that's super cool. Excuse me. Michael J. Fox was the first choice for Marty, but he was filming Teen Wolf at the time as well as Family Ties, so he had to turn it down. John Cusack, C. Thomas Howell, Johnny Depp, Ralph Macchio, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, Ben Stiller, Peter DeLuise, Billy Zane, George Newborn, Robert Downey Jr., Christopher Collette, Matthew Modine, and Corey Hart were all considered or auditioned for Marty. The role went to Eric Stoltz. More on that later. Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, Ron Silver, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Mandy Patinkin, Gene Hackman, and James Woods were considered for the role of Doc Brown.
Wow.
The producers had seen Christopher Lloyd in Buckaroo Banzai and liked him.
Okay.
Any of those? Gene Hackman? No.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of the for both Marty and Doc Brown, a lot of the names you just read, like, these are incredible actors, and they would have done a good job. But,
Sure.
But this role is Michael J. Fox,
Yeah.
and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
They were meant for these roles.
Yeah.
They are these roles.
It's so synonymous with it. Filming began November 26, 1984 with Eric Stoltz. However, Stoltz would use the method approach to acting and turned several crew members off during filming. On top of being a bit difficult, Zemeckis found that Stoltz was just not working, wanting a more fun and screwball approach to the role as opposed to Stoltz's serious, dramatic tone. The decision was made to fire Stoltz and replace him with a now available Michael J. Fox.
It was like 4 weeks in or something, wasn't that?
They shot a lot.
Oh my god!
And a lot of the crew, like the actors, Leah Thompson and Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson didn't get along with him at all. Like Tom Wilson's like not anything like his character.
People say he's like the nicest guy in the entire world.
He's like super nice, and like during their like confrontation in the lunchroom, Eric Stoltz shot that scene. He was pushing him and actually like got like really physical with him and bruised Tom Wilson. And Tom Wilson was like, "I'm gonna get him back, but not like violently. He was gonna like do a prank on him or something like that, but he got fired instead. So I guess that's the ultimate.
Well,
prank.
didn't they also say that because of these 4 weeks lost and the changing to Michael J. Fox, they lost like $1 million to $2 million.
Wow.
But also the girl that played his girlfriend Jennifer,
Yes.
now she had to like drop out too. So then the role came back to the girl that actually played her in the movie.
Correct.
So it worked out good for her too.
Yes. The film shot in and around Los Angeles, with the clock tower in particular being the Universal Studio backlot. Pretty much the entire town is the Universal Studio backlot.
Oh.
Also, where Gremlins filmed. Filming went off relatively easily, despite the fact that several scenes had to be reshot because of the recasting of the lead. Released on July 3rd, 1985, with a budget of $19 million, Back to the Future would earn $388.8 million, 2 sequels, and cement itself as one of the greatest movies ever made. Mm-hmm. The production company actually, they were test screening the film, and it wasn't like going well here and there, but they test screened it for like all of the production guys involved, and they all loved it. And especially one of the producers was like, "I'm fast tracking this. Like, we're releasing this as soon as you can get an edit." Especially in the summertime, they wanted to have that summer blockbuster kind of angle. So they
so it was the October 26, 1985 is when this took place. So it was actually taking place in the future from when the movie came out.
Kind of fun, huh?
What? Yeah. Because they intended it for it to come out in the fall, probably, right? Wow.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. Nuts.
Well,
before we jump into AJ's review and rating segment, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Cedar Ridge Distillery. We're more than 100 episodes in on this podcast, and with all the craziness that has happened, this beautiful Iowa-based whiskey distillery has been with us for almost 2/3 of the life of this podcast. I got to be honest, I didn't know if we would make it this far. Like, I really
says that.
I just saying, like, not many people start a podcast and make it more than like 3 episodes. So I'm like, oh, we'll make it 6 or 7. But I've been thinking that there's probably 3 reasons on why I'm still loving this and why we're still here. Number 1, you guys.
Thanks,
I think you guys are my best friends in the whole world, and it's fun to sit in the room. Number 2, everyone that's been listening and sharing this podcast, like, I mean, you guys are what we do this for. Number 3, having a company like Cedar Ridge Whiskey support us, I mean, that is an unbelievable thing for us to have with all the amount of time that we put in here. We're so grateful. We're hoping by now you've gone out and purchased a bottle for yourself. Maybe it's the flagship bourbon. Maybe it's the collaboration with Slipknot.
Hell yeah, dude.
Maybe it's the quintessential single malt, which is better than Scotch, in my opinion. That's what I'm going on a limb here saying that.
A lot of people agree with you.
Doesn't matter. They're all incredible. If you haven't tried it yet, go to cedarridgewhiskey.com. Order some straight to your door, or find a local establishment in the Midwest and say, bring this. I need it. I want to buy it. So as I cheers my two friends and all of our listeners, please consider buying a bottle. You won't be disappointed. You'll make us all happy. cedarridgewhiskey.com.
cedarridgewhiskey.com.
Say it, AJ.
cedarridgewhiskey.com.
So up next, we have AJ. He does the research for us. He talks about ratings and reviews from critics and fans alike. What do you got, man?
I got a few things that we should talk about, guys. First and foremost, you know it.
You know it.
You love it.
You love it.
We want more of it.
Oh, my God.
The tomato meter.
Gross.
This is not a gross. I bet.
No, it's very ungross at 97% certified fresh.
Wow.
On the Rotten Tomatoes.
That is tied on any movie we've done. That is tied for number 2 with Big, Ghost, Busters, Groundhog Day.
Why did we do that?
Ghostbusters, Groundhog Day, Jaws, just below the number 1 rated on Rotten Tomatoes movie we've done, Princess Bride.
Nice.
Wow. That's
Yep.
right. What was that? 98?
98.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Just give it
Audiences.
100. Like, what are you
Right.
doing?
Right.
What's the 2% that got dinged?
let's hold back a little bit here.
There's no such thing as a perfect movie.
That's right. Time will tell. 94% audience score in with that, and then 8.5 on the IMDb.
That is also any movie we've done tied at number 2. That is tied with T2 and Princess Bride. The Shining is 8.7. Or sorry, 8.4. The Shining, just below that.
Gotcha. Couple of reviews here from some critics. Slant Magazine. They said, part of what they said, Back to the Future stands up on its own as a well-oiled, brilliantly edited example of new school Spielberg-cultivated thrill craft, one that endures even now that its visual effects and ha-ha references to Pepsi-Free and reruns seems as dated as full-service gas stations apparently did in 1985. Its schematic organization of what Marty and Doc need to accomplish and its steadily mounting series of mishaps demonstrating how they can go wrong represent probably the most carefully scripted blockbuster in Hollywood history.
Wow.
But the movie's real coup, and what separates it from the increasingly fluent pack of Spielberg knockoffs, is in how it subtly mocks the political pretensions of the era. Not the 1950s, but rather the 1980s. That was a very high rating, by the way. I think that was 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. This was a 5 out of 5. And I really liked this one because he talks about it when, from a certain perspective. I'll give you the first little bit. It says, despite repeated asteroid threats, nuclear meltdowns, wars great and small, and potentially species-eliminating plagues, we as a planet have finally made it. Happy Back to the Future Day, everyone. October 21st, 2015 is the day Doc and Marty jetted off to at the end of the first film. So that's the perspective he's taking on it, right? But he says, but how on this monumentous day does the original Back to the Future stack up? Pretty much perfectly, to be honest. Time has not blunted its fresh wit, Caparesque sweetness, effortless Mobius strip storytelling, and endlessly charming performance one iota. There's the odd you won't get away with it now moment. Marty basically hatches a plan to sexually assault his mom in a car park, and there's a scene where it turns out a white guy invented rock and roll after all.
Oh, no. Come on.
But overall,
I didn't think about it like
man.
this is every bit as classy, clever, and cockle warming as it was in at 30 years ago.
I like cookie
I
warming
like
better.
too. I think I like cookie warming too.
What the fuck is a cockle?
It's a Freudian swipe, like we've talked about before, right? I think that's what these
Isn't
call.
that like a, yeah.
Slip? I know. It's just. All right, I got some fun. Let's go negative. really quick.
I can't wait to hear this.
This is 1 out of 10. Not so good, said Jay Garcia 367. Warning, spoilers. I can see why certain people would like this movie, but I've been watching it myself for several years now, and it's just not for me. I think it's cheap.
Every day for several years. What is it about this movie?
I'll try it again.
Well, all right, let me see again. Let's try one more time. That's the joke of like, oh, I don't know. It doesn't seem too good of food. I better taste it again.
Pretty quiet in here.
Yeah. Apart from the creepy scenes with the young mom hitting on her future son, there's a huge plot hole I've noticed for many years. Why wouldn't his adult parents remember that their son looks identical to the kid from both their pasts? It's a dumb movie and made for a certain group of people.
Because they did a bunch of drugs after that.
Yes.
They forgot all about it. Just make up something. Suspension of disbelief.
Here we go. I'm going to go give you a quick tidbit of positives because this person said that this movie literally, it changed their life. They said that this is not just a movie, I realized. It is a gift from the past.
Cool.
It said he talks about like adulthood and he says you will go to the past with Marty and Doc, and unlike our main character, you will never want to go back.
Oh no!
So maybe
New music sucks.
Maybe you're just like Marty McFly, a slacker, an outcast, a rebel, or you're just like Doc, an optimist, a creator, a visionary. If you're as lucky as I am, you're all the above.
Oh, fuck off!
Wow. All right. Is that Elon Musk?
That's currently what he's working on right now.
They said, huge thank you to Robert Zemeckis and the creators for changing my life. I know it will change yours. Do you want to know when that was written?
Yes.
Oh, God, yeah, tell me.
September 26th of 2022.
That man is walking amongst us
That's
right
right.
now.
I'm hoping that that's the first review I found that was written so that we'd be read on here. So give me one more here, guys. Okay, this was written by Quadrophenia. A boy goes back to 1955. This is a 1 out of 10. Warning, spoilers.
Oh no. Yes.
So Doc Brown has a DeLorean car that is ran by petroleum, and he can go back to the future in it when it reaches 88 miles per hour. So he asks his friend Marty to meet him at the car park to show him how it works. But whilst the Libyan terrorists are after him, as he stole the petroleum of them, when Mary and Doc are in the car park, the Libyan turn up and shoot the Doc, but Marty escapes, and the DeLorean reaches 88 miles per hour and ends up back in 1955, where he has to find the Doc and try to get him back to 1985, whilst also in 1955 he tries to get to his future mom and dad before he vanishes forever and before his mom wants to become his girlfriend, which I found a little strange, but whatever floats people's boat, I guess.
This is a review? Did he say petroleum?
So
This car runs on petroleum.
Doc and Mary.
Radioactive petroleum.
every car runs on petroleum.
It does. And it says, I found it a little strange, I guess, but whatever floats people's boats, I guess.
No punctuation, clearly.
Except for an exclamation mark at the end.
Wow.
Got to.
Thank you. What was the rating on that?
That was a 1 out of 10.
Oh,
So what?
by Quadrophenia 69524.
It's like, so here's the breakdown of the
plot.
movie.
Here's the plot of the beginning of the movie.
One.
And then
1
also,
out of
it
10.
doesn't float my boat. 1.
Anyways, not my cup of tea. 1. That's it. So
Well, we have
Incredible.
we have stripped away the nostalgia. We've given you the details, the ratings and reviews. What do you say that we spend 30 years selling our entire family fortune and living in isolation in order to finally realize an invention that will change the world? We had to cut a few corners, make a few strange stylistic choices, and piss off an international group of terrorists, but it will all be worth it as we see the look on that stupid teenager's face when this baby hits 88 miles per hour. It's time for some serious shit.
We're doing it.
Here we go! So Marty McFly enters Doc Brown garage and overloads a guitar amplifier. After rushing to school on his skateboard, he meets his girlfriend Jennifer, but is caught by the principal for being late. After school, Marty's band auditions for the school dance but is rejected. Marty heads home and we experience his sad family life.
The intro to this is all clocks. This must be a time travel movie. It's such a good oneer. It's like one cut in the oneer.
That whole thing's one cut, isn't it? Pretty much.
It cuts to a close up of one thing. I think the dog food.
The dog food.
The dog
That's what
food, and then it goes back to the oneer. It's such a good. I mean, and then this like it was supposed to be. He was like in one of the drafts. Marty was like breaking out of school or something like that. And this is so much simpler. It tells so much more than that. It's so cool. I love it.
Every time you watch this, there is more information being told to you so subtly through the scene. Like we'll go through it as we go through this movie, but everything you need to know about the plot is pretty much set up right now in this original. It takes 6 minutes from the opening scene until Power of Love kicks in, which normally we hate so much. We hate like, come on, just like get to the intro and let's go. But this is just pure perfection. This whole intro scene.
Yeah.
It takes like 16, 17 minutes or something to get to the actual score, the start of the score.
Oh my God.
Like there's no score in like besides Huey Lewis until we get to the DeLorean.
I mean, Power of Love though, like that. When we talk about iconic songs that hit in a movie, this hits so hard and so iconic. The opposite of Cry Little Sister from Lost Boys.
I was gonna say I think it's right up there with Cry Little Sister. I think it's almost there. No, I do love it. I love the introduction of this just as much. I love it because it's silent. The camera is slow. And everything it's showing you is chaos.
Yeah.
And I love that about it so much. And especially, like, things aren't set up the right way. Doc hasn't been there, obviously, for a while. The dog food is just absolutely disgusting.
Because Einstein hasn't been there in a while either.
Einstein hasn't been there either. And, yeah, it is just awesome. But the amplifier.
Yeah.
The amplifier, man.
Imagine those magnets in that bitch.
Oh, my gosh.
Huge.
Typical teenage musician, though. I'm just going to turn every knob up as high as it goes because that's how I want to hear this guitar.
How satisfying is like the turning up all the knobs and everything, like the
yes,
and the sound gets up and
all the little needles.
Yeah.
I just love it. I just love that so much. There is something so satisfying about the sound design and how I'm so glad that this is the way they did it. There's no strings in the background. There's no building tension to anything. It's just silence, and then it's just
ticking of clocks.
Yes, and then it's just noise.
Yeah.
But that is building that undertone of like frequencies is building tension.
That's a good point.
Definitely.
Yeah,
especially
if
you've ever been in the music business, like the more hum and buzz you get out of stuff is like, what do you think's gonna happen here, Marty? So I have a few questions about this.
Can I just say real quick? I fucking hate that guitar.
Well,
he's playing.
Everyone
What
does.
is
and
that?
Is that a metal pick?
I don't think it is, but it's an interesting pick.
It shines. It
does.
shines in the light.
It glints. Yes, it glimmers. I have to see. I meant to look up what the guitar was, but the head of that guitar looked like a Dan Electro or like an airline kind of head. But what the heck? Like, why don't you just get a normal guitar?
Yeah,
it's the
like,
80s, bro.
Like from Sears. Like
the 80s. From Sears. So two thoughts and questions for you. Number one, Doc, does this show us what Doc and Marty's friendship is here? Because they never really explain how these two would have ever known each other or why they would have ever hung out. But it's clear as day, and we'll get into this later. I've got some mind-blowing thoughts about this, but Doc built this for Marty. Because why does Doc need this?
Right.
This amp. So he built this for Marty to come over to his garage and play guitar. And I think that's incredible.
Sleep there.
Well, I think that's where Doc lives.
Well, yeah, but Marty's there.
No, Marty doesn't stay there.
He wakes up there, right?
No, he walks in the door.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, Marty walks in the door. That's Doc's place.
I don't know why I have that in my mind. Anyway,
but also, so why we think critically about this movie. A lot of times we just watch them, but when we do these reviews, we try to think about it. Like, well, why did that happen? So why did Doc set the clocks back 25 minutes?
This was my biggest question in this whole thing is why that happens and why are they set back? And then why does he say my experiment worked?
Yes. The clocks are exactly 25 minutes slow.
Correct. Is
But-
those my clocks? Yeah, it's like it's 8
Are those my clocks I
it's
hear?
8 o'clock. He's like, oh, they're exactly 25 minutes behind. It's like wait, it's 8:25, and so, but he later on says Einstein's just become the world's first time traveler.
So, yeah. So, are we thinking that he has somehow been doing time traveling experiments, like maybe sending physical objects back in time or something
Yeah.
like that?
Right.
Somehow using the flux capacitor, but not in the DeLorean or something?
He would
Because
have to.
what's the reason for this? Like, we know the Doc's sort of a bit of a failed inventor, but he did something to make these clocks go back, and for a reason. Why? Why do that?
I mean,
Why-
like with any experiment, you gotta do it over and over and over again. So I assume like he sent like a casserole back in time to see if he was eaten and
If it
then
was still
came back,
Yeah.
and or something. Yeah, I think that's probably what's happening. It seems that way. It feels that way when I'm watching this movie.
It's a good point. Maybe he, just like he did with like Einstein having the stopwatch or the little thing, maybe he just sent a clock
he
back
was working on.
Yeah.
or sent a clock
Oh.
ahead. Maybe that's what he did. Okay.
Maybe he sent the whole garage in time.
Yeah.
Back in time.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's a big flux capacitor and
It
a lot
is,
of
man.
and
I
a
will
lot of
say
petroleum.
I don't know if it's just like the Blu-ray release or like the DVD release that I was watching, but did the title card come up before anything else for you guys?
Oh, geez, I don't remember where the
Because
title
it
card
just came up like Back to the Future and then clocks.
And then
like,
really?
faded in clocks for me. I just wish that that title card would have came up like during Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
Mm.
When he
I
goes,
don't know.
damn, I'm
'Cause
late for school. Boom.
It's just it's a little nitpick, but like I just think that would be like a way cooler thing, like because he like as he's getting out of the garage, he's like sketching
Yeah.
on a skateboard with that car, and it
So
kind of
dope.
pulls out to the entire town. It'd be like Back to the Future right there. Like that'd have been cool for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. When he's taking his little trip through town, almost kind of a vibe. Yeah,
I
He
like
is
that a lot
so
better.
damn cool. Like
Mhm.
this was one of the coolest things I've ever. Marty McFly is one of the coolest all-time dudes ever.
There's
Mhm.
nothing better than this character with Huey Lewis and skateboards and sketching to
Waving at the
school.
aerobics.
Dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's
There's
so
nothing
cool.
better than this, man, and I don't know how you can like not be into this right away.
right now.
God,
he is epically cool. 'cause
and
he
I
can't
cannot
be.
see Eric Stoltz doing any of this.
No.
So did you guys ever watch any of the Eric Stoltz footage?
I've
Like,
just seen the diner, like where he's like looking at his dad,
Right.
George.
There's a couple of things that you get to see when he crosses the street in 1955,
Mhm.
and he has some interactions with Doc at the parking
Yep.
lot and everything.
So
It
weird.
wouldn't have worked.
It looks so different. He's not dressed the same. The wardrobe is different. You can even tell now, and there's no audio. Like at least in what I had
Right,
found,
right.
there's no audio, but you can tell. And I didn't know this until you said it earlier. You can tell there's a more serious tone when he's on screen. Like he's dressed darker. The reactions of like other people that he's like Doc and stuff
Yeah.
are a more serious tone than like when he's on screen or when you see this footage and compared. And then they do the side by side of when it's Michael J. Fox and it's more fun and brighter and I don't know. It was very interesting. So you're right. Like this is Michael J. Fox's performance.
Yep.
That is a big help to what this movie is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's
There's
funny.
nobody else.
He's funny. He's cool. He's
Yeah.
charismatic. It's just you immediately fall in love with this character, and you're like, I hope this works out.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Absolutely.
In fact, speaking of Huey Lewis,
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite things I ever found out in my life was that Huey Lewis is the judge, the middle judge in the Battle of the Bands.
so
It's like,
cool.
bring on the next band, please. I'm afraid you're just too darn
You're
loud.
just too darn loud.
what
If
a
you ever-
shitty Battle of the Bands,
If you-
man.
dude.
If you ever watch this with anybody else, you're just watching the scene just like, don't say it. don't say it.
That's Huey Lewis.
Don't say it. Did you know that's Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis in the news? Who wrote
Everybody's like, yeah.
Watching this with my girlfriend, and
Yeah.
I said that she's like, "Oh," like everything else that I tell her. She's just
That's-
like, "Oh,
AJ,
okay."
you're basically in your living room. You're doing the Huey Lewis where he looks over at the one judge and they don't look at him. Then he looks over at the other judge.
Yes.
They don't look at him. You're like, God damn it! Somebody look at me so I can tell you.
somebody? I just want to be able to like look over. I just want to be able to look over at somebody who I'm watching this movie with and just be like,
I know. It's Huey Lewis. It's Huey Lewis.
Like Huey Lewis. I think when I think of Huey Lewis, I think of AJ.
Really?
Why?
Because like you love Huey Lewis, I feel like.
I do.
He's the best.
I
I
do
feel like
love
when
Huey
you go
Lewis.
golfing, it's just Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
It's just AJ listening to sports, the sports album by Huey Lewis.
It's hip to be square, man. Dude, there is something.
Somebody Photoshop AJ. We're gonna be doing American Psycho soon. A little spoiler.
Just throwing it out there.
Someone Photoshop AJ with sports, or I think he has sports with American Psycho or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some people really think. No, there is something else about Huey Lewis though, and his guitar tone in this song in particular is one of my like top 5 guitar tones.
You mean while he's playing at the Battle of
In
the
the
Bands?
80s?
Yeah, like no. So the actual song itself,
From Power of Love,
from
okay.
Power of
Yeah.
Love, is one of my favorite guitar tones actually.
Wow.
Because when you listen to it, it is not a distorted heavy guitar. It's a very almost kind of twangy, like the heaviness or distortion comes from the twang of the guitar.
kinda
And I know
playing
I'm
a telly or
overanalyzing. Yeah. I know I'm overanalyzing, but just go back and listen to it. It's very, very iconic as far as his guitar tone goes. That's my own little tidbit
Hey,
there.
no, that's
Wow.
cool.
Wow.
That's cool.
So your prop is guitar tone.
Basically, guitar tone.
Guitar
Yes,
tone comes from the hands.
That's right.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, great. I had a weird moment here. Marty just gets rejected at the Battle of the Bands. We see that beautiful, beautiful 4x4 truck. I still think
Dude.
I loved it when I was a kid. I still think it's, why do you
Yes.
think I have a black truck?
Dude.
It's because of this movie.
You
Seriously.
you need the big like the roll cage on
yeah.
the back with the lights.
Check
up
out
top.
that 4x4.
4x4.
I'm only 5'3", so I got to stand on this bench to see it. But I had a moment, dude. He's about to kiss Jennifer, and the car comes up. Jennifer. And I used to always be like, come on, Dad. Like, what's up with that? Now I'm like, you're damn fucking right. Like, you keep your hands off that. I got a girl now. I have a little baby. You keep your hands off her. You're not going camping.
I've been
this
watching you
weekend.
this entire time.
That-
Jennifer, touch her.
That damn McFly's a slacker. He's like, I know him.
I know.
I know his parents.
Ooh, here's a prop.
Wow.
I'm coming in early on the prop, so I want
Don't.
the Save the Clock Tower flyer.
Okay.
But the one that has Jennifer's handwriting on the back that says "I love you," 555-4823.
Nice.
Is their number?
23.
I want that exact kind of crumpled up. Save the clock tower.
Here's a quarter, lady. Yeah. I do have one.
Okay, what do you got?
It's Marty's mixtape, his demo tape.
The Edward. Oh, okay.
I want Marty McFly's demo tape.
Well,
that he should send to the record.
Does he
company.
have? Is there cover songs on there? Because he was playing a cover song at the Battle of the Bands.
Boo.
So is it a cover? Is it a bunch of covers, or does he have originals?
But see, was it a cover? Was it a cover, guys?
I don't know.
If it's in the future,
Huey Lewis is not Huey Lewis. He is, in fact, a judge at that competition. And there is
true.
a tidbit that actually says Huey Lewis wrote the arrangement style, or the cover, if you will, of that song for that band.
Okay.
So is it a cover?
So you want his demo tape?
I want his
The
demo
Pinheads.
tape. I want the Pinheads demo tape.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
speaking of music, I think I gotta take Marvin Berry's Double Cutaway, Gibson, Hollow Body.
That E35.
Yeah. That thing is
Marvin
beautiful. I mean, could you just imagine, like, right here?
Oh,
Right
yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Just hanging there and not being touched at all.
Replace all your shining stuff with a guitar.
See, that's what I hate about it, is because, like,
See, that's why I don't want it.
maybe I don't want it because I want to play it all the time, and I don't want
Yeah.
to just have it hanging and collecting dust.
See, I've looked back and I realized I should have just been collecting guitars from all these movies. Jeff Healey's.
Yeah, dude.
Oh.
Like the Ibanez that Marty plays at the audition, the E35, the Gibson, that Marvin Berry's
Yeah.
guitar. There's so many that you're just like, I should have just been collecting guitars this whole time.
I just came up with another joke for Roadhouse. Jeff Lappy, because he plays on his lap.
I don't like that.
Why did we roast him so
I
hard?
don't know.
Jeff, we didn't roast Jeff Healey at all. You did.
I know I did,
Yeah.
but like you're a part of the show too.
I authorized this. All right, so let's talk about this. This is where you're thinking if this movie was really fun as a kid. You're like, this is so fun. He was skateboarding. He's playing in a band.
Yeah.
Then he gets home. He, by the way, skitching on a cop car on the way home.
No,
I was like,
yeah.
well, damn, this kid does not
Hey,
have any.
but brake check him. That's death.
That dude, he is literally living Tony Hawk Underground. Like that's what he is doing.
He is, man.
Super
Like,
cool.
Oh
then,
yeah.
then you get then it like takes a turn, right? Then we see his home life, and you don't really, as a kid, younger, you're watching this and you're just going, okay, yeah, like whatever, the families aren't perfect, but there's some really deep, like sad undertones about from the moment he walks in this house with the Biff interaction, and you don't understand some of the stuff he's saying, like talking about, you didn't tell me your car had a blind spot, you know,
Right.
like. That of course it did. But as a kid, you're like, yeah, you didn't tell him. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And to have my car towed all the way to the house, the only thing you have for me is light beer.
It's like, dude, Tom Wilson is
So good.
so amazing. He is that like iconic, just like Shooter McGavin. You know,
Yes.
he is
Biff
if
Tannen.
not more so, right? Yeah, exactly. He is Biff Tannen, and he's also all the other characters that he portrays as a Tannen. You know, and it's so. It is, like you say, it's a borderline heartbreaking as you watch that he just comes in and his dad is just getting railroaded by this guy, and he's, well, Biff just happens to be my supervisor, and I'm just afraid I'm just not good at confrontations. It's like,
Ugh.
Yeah.
Like you're exhausted for him.
you're right. It's like his whole life must just be exhausting for George McFly, and like you say, is who's gonna pay my cleaning bill?
I spilled beer.
Spilled
when that
beer
car
all
was-
It's like you just
Wait,
admitted
what?
to drinking and driving, and you're worried about your cleaning bill, and then at the end he's just say hi to your mom for me.
Yeah,
You're just
and
like,
that has a whole
"Jeez."
nother connotation as you
Yeah.
get deeper into the movie. You're like, whoa,
Jeez.
like assuming some things that maybe were supposed to happen in the old timeline.
Right.
That gets a little weird when you
Absolutely.
start diving in there. Then you see his brothers and sisters and his mom. I never noticed that she's just dumping vodka.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
she's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
100%.
Goes through a quart a night. Gotta
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Both of his siblings are working shitty jobs. George clearly just doesn't care about anything. He's
Yeah.
not even
Except his
checked.
TV
He's-
shows.
Jackie Gleason.
He's just getting his mild
Dude.
joys out of this
Crispin
life.
Glover is the best.
Could you have seen anyone else playing this role?
No.
Not after watching it, this way. You it would be like somebody. Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think there is a way.
This is that movie where every single person that played that character is that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, there's no change in this.
No.
Yeah, like if someone came back in time to like change the like have them in the movie instead of somebody else, it just wouldn't. We would notice,
Yeah.
even though we like technically
You
shouldn't
go,
have.
it wasn't as good.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about that. It would have changed for sure.
Yeah.
Like Crispin Glover, I read that he was like super nervous. It's like one of his first movies, super fucking nervous to do this movie, and so a lot of his lines were kind of dubbed in post
Oh.
because he was kind of shaky.
He couldn't deliver it.
And also, he was way too intense for Zemeckis. He's like, you need to, because he's Crispin Glover. He's like, you need to tone it back a little bit. And
What do you mean? I am toning it back.
yeah,
He was,
exactly.
he was the youngest out of those three, of Marty,
Lorraine.
and
Really?
and George. He was the youngest, and so actually, Michael J. Fox and Laura Thompson,
Leah.
Thompson. Sorry, they're the same age.
Right.
Wow.
Like 3 days apart or
Yeah,
something.
they were like 21 or
22.
something like this. So 22
Yeah, I think so.
during the filming of this, and Crispin Glover was like 3 or 4 years older.
so he was older.
Younger.
Okay.
Three or 4 years younger. So it kind of takes you back to. I always say on a movie like this, especially when you watch it in HD, it kind of reveals some of the seams of like makeup and
Oh, yeah.
little things, or it makes the special effects seem a little bit more like tchotchke,
Yeah.
like, so I always like the idea if you can go back and if you can find the regular, standard definition of a movie like this, watch it that way.
Yeah.
I think because like Biff Tannen and when he's older,
He looks a little weird.
he looks kind of strange.
Doc's old neck.
His old
looks-
neck
looks really
Strickland
weird.
is the same way.
Yeah.
But you never noticed that on VHS
You don't
in the
notice
early
it now.
90s. ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It all just blends together so well,
I did find something this time. Did you notice so his brother David, did you notice like David and George McFly's kind of relationship in the current timeline where they're both sort of like these down on their luck guys. Like David's going to work at like a fast food place. He's leaving at like 7 o'clock at night to go work somewhere. And like he like really does love his dad. He's like, he kisses his dad on the head.
Yeah.
And I love you, Pop. You know, like I really liked that little relationship that they sort of had bonded on at some point, I guess.
He's right, Marty. It's like, the last thing you need is headaches.
And then they both start laughing at the show.
It's one of my favorite things to imitate from any movie.
Last thing you need is headaches.
I don't know, Marty. You don't need the headaches of playing at that dance.
Playing at that dance while he's just unloading peanut brittle. I always thought it was cereal.
I did too. No, that's peanut brittle. We just put it in bowls.
Peanut brittle.
This is a man just completely dejected from life.
Yes.
And
he's giving up.
He just gets home from work and he has the most simple, small pleasures possible that he gets to revel in for nanoseconds. And old Jackie Gleason reruns.
This is him.
That's
all he wants.
That's
when
what
like
got,
Lorraine's
man.
like that and telling the story of how they met and everything. He's just like, will you just for once be present with our family?
I know.
You might get laid tonight, George. Nope, not gonna happen.
What, Lorraine? What?
He said he'd go to the fish under the sea dance. It's the enchantment under the sea dance.
And she is just living back in this time, that is.
Yeah.
She's thinking about this, what was maybe the best time of her life, and he is just out of it.
Well, I got a theory later. I don't know if you have the same one. That it might not have been the best time of her life, and that's why she's drinking so much.
I see.
We'll get there.
We're going to dive so deep. Before we move on to scene 2, we got to give a shout out to our amazing sponsor, NordVPN, for helping us keep the lights on. We live in a world where everything we do is online. We are constantly connected to Wi-Fi and exposing all our most sensitive information. The most important information that I have is stored on my computer and my phone. All my podcast stuff, my band accounts, my real estate stuff, my important information. Losing any of that would be detrimental and just send me down a deep, dark spiral. So knowing how important internet privacy is in this day and age, I absolutely never knew what to do or who to trust. Luckily, NordVPN has all the tools that all of us need by providing a service that protects your internet connection and privacy online. It creates an encrypted tunnel for your data and protects your online identity by hiding your IP address and masking your virtual location. Been using the service now for about 2 months, and I can tell you, I feel so much better about using public Wi-Fi hotspots. I have no fear of third-party people spying on me or taking my info. In fact, it's opening my eyes to what websites I need to be more careful on, because sometimes they just won't go. You're like, why won't this website load? And then you turn off your NordVPN, and it works. So it's like, well, why is this website not wanting me to use this?
Interesting.
Makes you think a little bit more. There's tons of reasons to consider NordVPN, being able to access blocked websites, watching TV films via other streaming services in other countries. This
Very
is
important for us.
This is what is so nuts. I told you guys I watched the movie Snowpiercer, and I go, oh, there's a TV show. I want to see it. And I couldn't find it anywhere. So I switched my VPN to UK or Ireland or something like that. Bam, Snowpiercer, the series was available. So
a lot of movies will be available in other places that they aren't here, especially in Netflix or Amazon.
Yeah.
It works for any of those streaming services.
Yeah, you guys have to give NordVPN a try. I'm so glad I did. You will be too. Go to nordvpn.com/breakfast to receive a huge discount on a 2-year plan and 4 free months, which are completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. I promise you this crucial thing to have. You have to give it a shot. You'll be hooked like me once you try it. nordvpn.com/breakfast for all the details. Scene 2.
4 free months?
4 free months.
I might do that.
Risk-free. I'm just saying. So, scene 2. That night, Marty meets Doc Brown at the mall and sees that Doc has invented a time machine. The Libyans arrive and kill Doc, forcing Marty to use the time machine to travel back to 1955. After a run-in with the farm family, the DeLorean dies and he walks into town realizing that he indeed did travel back in time. Stopping in Lou's Diner, he meets his father and a young Biff Tannen. Following George, Marty ends up accidentally preventing his father from meeting his mother by being hit with his grandpa's car. He interacts at dinner with his future family. Is this reveal of the DeLorean one of the coolest moments in film history?
I think so. Doc coming out of that thing, hot boxing it.
What's with the smoke?
Doesn't come back later.
Never.
Like you assume, like once you go back in time or you unveil it, you know, like it's gonna happen every time. But no.
Yeah.
I think he was just getting fucking high.
He's like, we're about to try this. Never tried it before. We need to at least be high for
Unless
this.
my beloved dog Einstein, I don't know if I'm gonna get him back or not. I got to be fucked up for this.
Hot boxing.
No, this like the DeLorean. I'm telling you, man. From the first time I saw this, I still feel the same way about when this car backs out. And how unbelievably dope they were thinking about using like a telephone booth and a refrigerator and a laser for this time travel device.
Yeah,
they ultimately settled on a car, and then they were like Ford Mustang wanted in on it, and they wanted to make it a Mustang or something, and they're like, no, it's a DeLorean. And I mean that is the best choice they could have ever made for this movie, because I still get goosebumps when this car comes out.
you only
Doc
know
gets
what
out
a
of it.
DeLorean is because of this
Yeah.
movie. You know,
I mean,
What
I
else?
would agree with you, except for Wedding Singer, but
Which is because of this movie.
but just because of this. But yeah, because Glenn is just trying to do everything that he ever sees in the 80s. He just
Yes.
wants that
Yeah,
to be
there you
his
go.
life. But you're right. They made it a DeLorean, and there was a little tidbit that it's like, yeah, it makes sense because this is like it looks like a spaceship. Like the doors that
Yeah.
open this certain way, it's like it
Gull
doesn't
wing
look.
doors, dude.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't look like a normal car. It looks like a spaceship almost. And
Yeah.
so going back in time, it would shock people more than just another car.
Well, did you think that that's actually what a DeLorean looked like for a long time? And then when you actually saw one, you're like, it
Where's-
doesn't have those things in the
where's
back.
the
Yeah.
jets?
Where's all the things on it? Why does it shoot smoke out
Where's
the back?
How's it
marijuana
fly?
smoke?
It's like, yeah, where's the marijuana?
I definitely went closed captions on this. There's a couple lines I never knew. He goes, "Doc, is that a Devo suit?" he asked that of his like radiation suit. I never noticed.
I'll answer
that
all
line.
your questions in time, buddy. Keep
rolling.
Roll tape.
Well,
Doc, is that a Devo suit?
You mentioned it was going to be like there was a refrigerator attached to it,
Yeah.
or like a magical refrigerator time machine or something. And Spielberg was like, "No, kids are going to climb into refrigerators
Oh
and
my
get
God,
locked
I
in."
didn't even think about
Like
that.
that's why we need to not do that. And
Let's make it a car that no one.
But then he
has.
would make Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Skull, and there would be a refrigerator that protects you from a nuclear blast.
Oh, good.
Thanks a lot,
So
everybody.
get in those once that happens.
Yeah. I think that this is the part that made me think, well, if it's the flux capacitor that makes time travel possible, then couldn't you do it with anything? But then
Right.
I think, why does it have to be up to 88 miles an hour?
Is that just a thing that he made? Like,
Un-
this is what has to happen.
It needs that
Yeah.
amount of like horsepower maybe to power the flux capacitor.
Friction, or just, I don't know, like, some sort of additional energy outside of like the plutonium and gas or whatever. I don't know, the
Yeah.
flux capacitor itself. I don't, that was the only thing I didn't quite understand was,
Yeah. What makes a flux capacitor flux?
yeah,
Flux
exactly.
capacitor is fluxing.
Fluxing.
So, critically thinking about this, he gets Einstein in the car, and he gets the remote control out, and he drives Einstein all over, and he brings him directly into the path of the car.
Mhm.
This is the first time this car, we're assuming, has ever gone back in time.
Right.
I was thinking, I'm like, why would you ever stand in the path of this car?
You don't know when it's gonna pop.
Not knowing that this is actually, Doc seems unbelievably surprised that it actually worked. So this is the first time this has ever happened. Doc even like looks at Marty like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, get back in the path of this car. There's a theory out there that Doc is actually suicidal in this.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah, like that's a dark turn, but like why would you stand in front of this? He has the worst history of inventions. He's like the worst scientist ever in coming up with things that actually work.
Yeah.
It's the first time it's ever worked. He had a car coming at him at 88 miles per hour directly in the path. You can stand to the side. Why did he do that?
Maybe he's like the angel of death, as you could say, when it comes to time travel. Like time travel, like has been discovered by him pretty much, and then gets discovered by like officials at the top of like the White House and like the governments of around the world and everything, and start changing everything for themselves. But he's the reason why like Armageddon happens, and so he's trying to kill himself to try and make sure that that doesn't happen. The inventor of time travel.
Good Lord.
That's my thought.
That just became super intense. Well,
Anyway, I really like the part with the dog.
I thought it was.
You brought it up.
Just saying, there's a lot. This movie might have the most fan theories out of any movie we've ever done.
Stick around. There's 2 hours left of this episode.
It is. It is one of those things that it makes you wonder, like, it's because he believes in it so much, but then you even think, like, he even says later on, I think it might be his past self, I finally invented something that works. Yes. And he puts himself and Marty in front of this thing. It's like, but science is a point. He is a scientist, and science makes the point of you test and 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 you try and try and try until you know you're going to get it right.
Okay.
Maybe that's the thing.
He's still mind blown that it works.
He is still mind blown, and I agree with you.
It's a little weird.
It's kind of
sure
strange.
Is great for the movie and visual effects, and those tire tracks going between
through
their
the legs.
Oh, that is so iconic.
Yes.
And it's still, to me, that effect still holds up. Like it's
Dude,
still looks great.
The whole 88 miles per hour.
Yes.
Those ILM effects still fucking hold up, like you say. Like I think it is just perfect for the film. Like the white. Or like the blue
and the
kind of things.
The blue neon on the car that flashes.
And then the explosion that happens, and then obviously the tire tracks. It is so cool. Still holds up.
Is this where we see like the license plate and stuff or whatever too, or is that later?
I don't know.
Like he tries to like pick it up or whatever, but then and then he comes back through.
Look out!
Yeah,
like, yeah, exactly. That was always the funniest thing to me is he's like, you disintegrated. I love their back and forth, man. I love their conversations that they have. Like just the dialogue between the two of them. It is because they're so different. But they appreciate, or they just run with whatever the other one is saying. Yeah. They don't sit there and correct each other, you know? And the perfect example is like, well, then where the hell are they? He's like, the correct question would be, when the hell are they? It's like, that is like one of my favorite lines for some odd reason. And he's sitting there and he's still calculating. And this is another testament to, I think, Christopher Lloyd being Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Like nobody, I don't think, could perform it this way. He's sitting there and he's constantly in calculation.
Yeah.
He's still trying to understand, like the things that are happening. And then his clock goes off, or the alarm goes off. He's like, look out.
Well, and just to stick with that, I don't think anyone could have delivered this sentiment like Michael J. Fox did, where he's like, holy shit, you invented a time machine. But even more mind-blowing than that is that it's out of a DeLorean.
The DeLorean?
Like, that is more interesting to him than inventing a time machine, is that it was a DeLorean.
Why not do it with a little style?
Yeah.
If you're going to invent it, then do it with a little style.
Those are known to get stuck in fifth gear.
Yeah.
What are you doing with a DeLorean, you know?
Oh, no.
Those doors are cool, but they get stuck all the time. My question is, they're doing this in the parking lot of a mall.
Mm-hmm. Twin Pines.
You assume that Twin Pines Mall is pretty busy. Are people not seeing this?
It's 1 a.m.
It's 1 a.m., man.
I mean, but still.
Shaun, it's 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
Like a
any sort of light happens at 1 a.m. I'm like, I'm awake for the rest of the night. No cops have been called. No cops are driving by seeing this or
mall
anything.
Security, man. Like, where's mall security? They should have been able to shut down. They're 24/7,
These
bro.
are simpler times.
They should have been able to shut down those Libyans. They would just like pulled up behind him in their little
blur.
Yeah, like
mall cops are superior to actual cops.
Yeah. Pull over the Libyans, and then you would have been fine.
The Libyans.
It's like, yeah, they're just doing burnouts and shit in the parking lot again.
It's
just
fine.
leave them alone.
It's Doc Brown. He's a 24-hour scientist. It's fine. That's
Yeah,
what his van.
Everybody knows Doc Brown. He's just he's like, oh,
Crazy old Doc Brown.
Oh, that's just Doc Brown.
Purveyor of
It's his truck.
scientific services and international arms dealer.
So when
Yes.
Marty asks Doc, he's like, well, what do you plan on doing? Like, they've gone through it. He's like, I'm going to go into the future 25 years. And so I went, the date 25 years in the future would be October 26, 2010 is when he would have gone into the future. Here's what was going on in 2010. These are the changes that Doc Brown would have had to look forward to. Had the first African-American president currently in office. Cell phones were around. Facebook was becoming prominent. Instagram test posts had just gone live. Katy Perry, Teenage Dream is the #1 song.
Damn.
Avatar and Inception had just come out, were the #1 movies. Inception might have blown his mind a little bit.
Probably.
Walking Dead had just come out on TV and just premiered. That is what Doc Brown would have walked into the future to been like, wow.
I was a sophomore in high school. That would have been fucking incredible.
It would have been, man.
I'll go back right now.
I'll go back to that era.
You know how much
right
I
now.
would change? I probably wouldn't be here.
I probably wouldn't be.
You know, I'd probably be on tour with Rob Zombie.
Probably.
There you go. See,
I'd give young Shaun, the keys to the kingdom.
because you can only go back in time to make it better. Like it'll only get better if you go back in time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
So we get our car chase. We get Doc getting shot. The epic moment of going back in time, crashing into Old Man Peabody's
This barn.
That ain't no airplane. I love that little family's cameo and the genius of this script writing of when he leaves and he crashes over the one pine,
Yes.
which you find out later. You never knew that. You're lying to yourself if you're telling me the first time you saw this movie that you put that correlation together.
No, absolutely not.
absolutely not.
That is from years and years of watching. But so now he's in town. We get to see that unbelievable transformation of the first time you watch this, and you're hearing Mr. Sandman, and you're seeing the town square completely changed. Like, we know it. We're like, holy shit, he did go back in time.
Yeah.
But Marty doesn't want to believe it.
No.
And he goes through all that. He those moments of he hears the clock tower ring. He has never heard the clock tower ring in his life. And it goes off, and he's like, what?
Right.
It's actually a courthouse instead of like a social services building or something like that. It's mind blowing. I mean, it's thinking like it'd be us going back to 1992 right now, which actually doesn't feel as weird, does it?
No.
Like that's how much time he went back.
That's right.
And I feel like the world probably changed more between 50 and 80 than it did in 92 and now. But
yeah, I think
that's
so.
my thought.
I think that's the big thing to understand, especially right now. Him going from 1985 to 1955, like you say, is far less than us right now in 2022 going back to 1985. It is a significantly larger difference, even though, I don't know about you guys, the 80s or 90s right now feels like it was 10 years ago.
It does.
Maybe.
It
True.
wasn't, but
True.
it feels that way.
But it absolutely was not. But like you say, we would have to. If we went back 30 years, it would only be the 90s.
Yeah.
And that right there it kind of blew my mind a little bit, just doing a little bit of that math.
I saw a kid as he's looking through like the whole town and everyone walking by and just like the personalities and everything. There's a kid on like 1950s moon boots.
They're
Yes.
like roller skates or something.
they literally have
The
springs. He's just like jumping along.
The
I'm like,
dad
wow.
is really annoyingly holding his hand going, can you just...
Kill it on guts.
I mean, he's,
At least he wasn't breaking his ankles.
hey, whoa, don't put that on TikTok.
yeah,
Child
yeah,
safety.
yeah. Okay, please.
What'd you think about? I mean, we got to talk about when he meets George. First of all, anytime someone has a vest on, I go, "What'd you do? Jump ship?"
Yeah.
I say that, or our eyes go, "Dork thinks he's gonna drown."
Dork thinks he's gonna drown.
But man, this is just such a cool moment when he finally realizes they're sitting there. They have the same pose.
Yeah.
And they both turn around to see Biff. I love how smart this movie is. In these in these scenes is where it really starts coming together.
Hey, McFly.
And they both turn around.
They both turn.
It's
Yep.
so good. I love the shot of him like leaning over.
Oh my god!
It's just like peeking. You can just see his eyeball a little bit
Yeah.
come into frame. It's so good.
Is that Matt Wilson from Encino Man? He's doing.
Yeah,
kind of
kind
doing
of.
another one. Terry Funk.
Terry Funk.
Yes.
If we were on a train to go punch a face, I'm on board.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, most punchable face in this movie. There are a few. Some might say maybe Lou in the cafe. I hate Lou, the cafe worker. He's such a jerk.
Turns out to be kind of rude.
Yeah, don't like Lou a lot. But I'm
True.
going with 3D glasses goon.
3D glasses.
I want to break those 3D paper glasses off of his face with a punch.
I think
so
that's
hard.
Casey Siemaszko.
Yep, I want those off his face immediately.
Why wear those?
Yeah,
Or like, is
that's
it just
his thing.
Is it like it's his thing?
Yeah, that's his
Like,
thing.
he's like, I'm the fat guy.
Yeah.
I'm the scrawny guy. I'm the whatever guy.
I can see in 3 dimensions.
No, you can't. You're just seeing blue and red all over the fucking place. It's got to be headache inducing.
It's got to be one of those things that just for the time, like for somewhere around 5 to 7 months during 1955, 3D movies were a thing, and it was cool because it showed that you went to a 3D movie.
Yeah, that's
you know
the
what I
only
mean?
thing.
That's the only thing I could think of. But then it's like you're messing with your own vision. You're gonna turn yourself colorblind, bro. Like red
Sorry,
and blue.
bro.
You're not gonna
You
see
look
red
cool,
and
though.
blue.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's that. I don't know if a 3D guy is my punchable face, but I mean I think I can agree with you for now. If something else comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna stick with
Yeah,
me.
it's either Lou or 3D guy.
Yeah.
So-
Nobody else, huh?
I mean, Biff gets it, but Biff deserves it, and he does.
And he gets it,
you
so you
know.
don't have to go ahead and punch him.
But as
What
you
about
say,
Courtney Gaines' character?
I know.
The
see?
steals. I mean, he's very that is a punchable face just
See?
in general. That's an ugly man.
Well, I think he's just I think he's just I think he's
What are we laughing at right now?
I looked over it.
That you would only punch him because he's ugly.
He's very he's ugly as shit. And he's mean and he's a bully.
You mean you're at the diner and you're just like kind of chilling, hanging out, and drinking some coffee, and then you see him next to you, you're like,
Weren't you in the burbs?
You lost, McFly. I'm cutting in. Scram, McFly. I want to go Courtney Gaines now.
So I had a thought. Maybe I feel like when I'm going to tell you this thought, I feel like you're going to be like, yeah, of course. Where were you? Because sometimes I can be a bit obtuse. I don't know if that's the right usage of the word, but I was thinking about Shawshank. So when he chases down George, and George is a peeping Tom.
the most obvious peeping Tom in the world.
He's a peeping Tom.
Like on the middle, on the tree branch that goes over the road.
yeah.
In broad daylight.
Yeah.
That's even more. Like
It was
you
the
could,
50s,
You
bro.
could be the one in your backyard and be a little bit more inconspicuous,
Yes.
but that's the most conspicuous is right there.
You're just driving down and you just see somebody like in the middle of a
trees
like
are
a
falling
tree just
down.
hang,
You're
and
just
you're
trying to
like,
get rid of branches. Oh, you got binoculars. That's
He's
what
like, what was it, George? Bird watching?
What, Lorraine? What?
What, Lorraine? What?
No, but my thought is that I just realized on this critical rewatch, he's peeping on Lorraine.
Right.
Is that right?
So
It has to
you're
be.
Sean. You've already known this.
I feel like I knew this. yes.
because he's on the branch across the street, facing the opposite side of the street, and when that car hits Grandpa yells in the exact direction that he's like, "Come on,
Yep.
Stella! Another one of these damn kids jumped in my car." So, which also tells us that like Lorraine is just always changing in the window. And is very like just people are always peeping on Lorraine because
Yeah.
they know that they can peep on her.
Exactly. That means multiple people have fallen in front of his truck.
And also, multiple people have been victims to Lorraine.
Yes!
Because another one happened. Imagine how many more of them they put into their house to rehabilitate a little bit.
You think
for
so?
Lorraine to rehabilitate.
Maybe. Well, yeah. That makes me wonder is if
She's a repeat offender.
she's a repeat.
Oh,
if-
she's the offender here, Sean? Jeez. Well, then she goes, put your pants back on.
yeah.
Which means that she's the only one that knows that his pants are off in
Yeah.
this house.
I've never
Which
seen
means
purple
she
underwear
took the
before.
pants off.
Because it's like, why were the pants off in the first
She
place?
took them off.
It's not like, why would you take them off? Why would you take them off? And like, why would I'm talking
did.
about a reasonable person.
Yeah.
You brought this unconscious person in. Why would you take their pants off?
They might be swollen.
Dirty, like, well, we don't want to get the street dirt on the sheets or something.
I don't know. I don't think anybody in that house knew what was going on.
Like when he
Yeah.
first wakes up, too, he's like, I had a nightmare. I went back in time. And that's all he says. Like, and Doc got shot.
Yeah.
You fucking asshole.
Well, but that was part of the dream. Like, we're fine. We're fine.
Terrible dream.
Went back in time, and I think that's all that happened.
Got chased by.
Like one of your best friends, your
Yeah.
crazy scientist person best friend got shot.
Yeah. I got chased by terrorists.
Libyan terrorists.
Like-
the worst kind.
Like what? They had a rocket
Libya?
launcher. It's like, you know what? Yeah, that does sound like a dream. Somehow that sounds more like a dream that I got chased by Libyan terrorists in a VW bus with a rocket launcher than going back in time.
Every night.
Every night, yeah, in front of JCPenney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is not closed down, by the way.
I love the phrasing of, where are my pants? Like, over there on my hope chest. Just like,
She's like, not only did I take them off, but I put them across the room, so you have to walk over and get them.
On my hope chest.
yeah, exactly.
What's a hope chest?
Just things I hope to happen to me someday.
I think that was one of the questions like I asked like my mom or something. I was like, "What's a hope chest?" She's just like, "It's a dresser." Like just
There were so
it's a
many
dresser.
weird names.
Don't think about it.
I had a client that was talking about like buying a house and putting her like stuff in the dining room. She's like, "Well, I've got the hope chest and I've got the armoire thing and and there were all these names I'd never heard of for like ways to just store china. And they all had different names.
The buffet, the
hutch, the buffet.
You're
Yes.
just like, yeah, it's got all of that. Just
credenza,
sign the goddamn contract.
Fucking
Yeah.
50s were like that, man.
the mantle. I don't know.
Well, you want to move on?
Yeah.
So Marty heads to Doc's house and is able to convince him that he's traveled back in time. They make a plan to fix the DeLorean and get Marty back to the future. Since Marty has altered the past and his mother is now infatuated with him, he works to help his dad win over Lorraine. Interrupted by Biff in the diner, Marty ends up getting the best of Biff. I have one more thing that maybe I'm going to look like a dummy here. You were on the same page with me on the last one. AJ's like, of course. Did you realize that Doc's garage, like that we saw Marty go into with the guitar in 1985, is the same garage that Doc has in the past? But all those articles basically said that Doc Brown Estate sells 400 acres or whatever. Doc's just slowly got rid of his family's land and his mansion and everything, but kept that garage.
Right.
That garage is the same.
Oh.
And that's why Marty doesn't know. He's like, do you know where 1622 Riverside Drive is or whatever?
Drive.
Because in 85, it's John F. Kennedy Drive. It had been changed. And you can see the address is like 1624 in 85, where 1620 is the address of his house in the past. So like,
So it'd be like a 1620 and a half.
yeah, like
pretty much.
they just made it a new thing.
Yeah.
Like those are the mind-blowing details to me that this movie doesn't even shove in your face. They're like, you'll figure it out.
They
someday.
just let it go.
Yeah.
They let it pass by, and I think that's like, it's just confident storytelling, you know? And I really do. You just have to appreciate that in a movie like this, because you're right. Like when he comes out the first time, he's like, "Oh, I'm late for school," and he comes out. He's right next to a Burger King.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, he
True.
skates past a Burger King.
He just sold all that land off for
Sold
developers, but kept a garage.
All the land. His house isn't there. The mansion or whatever that he actually goes up to in 1955.
Yep.
Like you're right. It's all different except for that garage is the same thing.
There's a whole notion of like trusting your audience to kind of figure out the story. But like in this, you don't really need to trust the audience to figure out to figure out the story. You kind of trust your audience to like maybe if they want to rewatch it one of these days, go back and kind of realize a bunch of these things.
It's like the original Easter eggs in a movie.
I mean, in a
100%.
time travel movie, you kind of get that.
Yeah.
But honestly, not a lot of them.
Right.
And this doesn't. I mean, this as like a blockbuster, summer blockbuster, didn't need to offer all of these details, but they carefully were writing this. I'm sure draft after draft, and like, oh, let's keep that, and take little bits from each draft and put them in there.
Throw that in there. Like, what if it's a different street? It's
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah,
well,
what if they changed the name of the street?
What if they changed the name of the street? Like, eventually it became.
That's why he doesn't know where it is.
Yeah, he's like, he doesn't understand. Oh, it's the other side of town. Block past Maple. It's the east side of town.
So smart.
Like, it's who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
Yeah.
I love that his grandpa's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he is. Look at it roll. Now we can watch Jackie Gleason while we eat.
What's a rerun?
You'll find out.
You'll find out. In Wonder Years, brother.
I love that guy so much.
I like when he pops that mind reader thing on his fucking head. He's like, I know what you're thinking. You were somewhat aroused by your mother.
Yeah.
He's like, no.
That is a perfect sound effect. I did have to critically watch. We all know the 1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah.
Have you guys looked this up at all?
I think so.
Yeah. So
Gigawatts?
it's supposed to be gigawatts. So many people thought that Doc Brown just mispronounced this, but that doesn't make sense because he's so smart and so intricate. Apparently, up until the late 80s, the prevalent pronunciation of giga was with a soft G. Like that is giga is technically how they used to say it, according to some stuff I found, and then it died out in the 90s and it became giga. Merriam-Webster dictionary has the 2 pronunciations for it.
Wow.
So it could be giga or giga.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought that was pretty cool.
Either you're a Doc Brown or you're a Webster.
Whatever, man. Is that like, there's so many iconic quotes, but is that like the quote of this movie? If you had to pick one that everyone would know?
It's like either Great Scott or it's one of Doc's lines.
1.21 gigawatts.
It's like the naming of the flux capacitor. Like there's
Yeah.
that. Like even like they still make those cars, the DeLoreans,
Yeah.
and they have them with a fake flux capacitor in
I want one.
the cab. Yeah, it's got to be one of Doc's
If
lines.
you Patreon members, if you guys can somehow like quadruple our membership, I will buy a DeLorean and I will put all the Back to the Future stuff on it. That's my midlife crisis car that I'm going to buy someday. So help us out, okay?
My only thing that I couldn't get past in nitpicking this movie, I guess, is did that TV have the right plugins for that camcorder?
No, Shaun, don't do this
Couldn't
to me.
have.
Shaun, don't do this to me.
Oh no, there's no way it's got RGB.
Unless Doc Brown invented it on the spot.
On the spot. Okay, I'll
was
buy
like,
that.
okay, this is video comes. Okay, so that's just transducing video. Okay, I can.
I'm literally willing to buy that.
Okay, cool.
It's got
Because I don't want you to ruin that for
Yeah,
me.
no, okay.
I don't
there
like
it
that you
is.
brought that up. I'm so mad.
You had to splice it together somehow.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
What do you
Like,
do
yeah,
the best
yeah.
one?
Wait, tape? I thought there was film.
Yeah.
It's tape?
Tape.
Of course, from the fallout from the atomic wars. I love how Doc is slowly like taking guesses on heavy. Why do you keep saying heavy? Is there a problem with the gravitational
Are
pull?
there things way heavier in the future?
As a scientist, he just constantly tries to justify everything he references. Or
He's
it's
like,
like,
no.
he's like a portable or TV studio. He's like, no wonder your president has to be a movie star. You know, it's like he's got to look good on TV. It's like what is going on? It's like, who's the vice president? Jerry Lewis?
Suppose Jan Wyman is the first lady. Good night, future boy.
Good night, future boy.
Apparently, they had to screen this movie for Ronald Reagan for his approval.
Awesome.
Did he like it?
Stupid.
Did he?
He actually likes it a lot.
Oh, okay.
But
liked it.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
he's fucking dead.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's just stupid. Like you gotta like if the mere mention of a president in a movie,
Right.
like that's culture.
Yeah.
You can mention something
That
like
is
that.
that is the culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's who the president is.
Like fine.
100%.
Oh, and it's also truth. He was an actor. Like this is total truth. I still love more about this Doc Brown stuff. Like I love how Christopher Lloyd plays this and how he basically tells you so much about his character without really telling you. Like they're at the school, right?
Right.
He learns that there's been these mistakes and he's got to get to school and get his dad back together. But he's like a rhythmic ceremonial dance, some sort of social. Like he's never had a girlfriend. He's never gone to a dance. He does not understand any of the rhythmic ceremonial dance.
It's a rhythmic ceremony. Yes. He's like, of course, he's like, you must know like what your parents like. They must enjoy some things. They're just like, no, they don't. It's like we have to get them to interact. We have to get them to look a rhythmic ceremony. It's like
It just
true.
like this like dictionary definition of everything.
Yeah,
He's just saying scientific verbiage.
He's
instead
never
of-
been to it.
it's true. He has to justify it in his scientific brain because he only has one way of thinking, and that's it. And it is he brings it down to the level of mating ritual.
Yeah.
That's just what he does.
Yes.
Because that's this is what they do because this is what kids do. It's like, oh yeah, it's a mating ritual for kids
It is what it is.
in the 50s. Yeah, that's all it is.
He's really breaking it down. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Biff is just sexually assaulting Lorraine in the cafeteria. Like literally just like behind her, like trying to grab her boobs, and she's like, "Get off me, get up!" And like I really believe another testament to Michael J. Fox performance in this is yes, he's very charming, but like also I believe him when he's like literally defending his mom in this
Yeah.
moment. You know, like
Oh,
get
yeah.
the fuck off, like that push. You know,
And them grabbing each other to punch. Like
Yeah.
that feels like that was really
It was
going
really
on.
yeah,
intense.
it was cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut you a break.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Didn't he apparently Tom Wilson made like those were all improv
Yeah.
lines? Those were not
So
written.
good,
That is
man.
such genius, man.
Because
I remember my dad would laugh at that. I'm like, what is? I'll laugh.
didn't get
I'll
it.
laugh too, but I don't understand what the joke is. He's like,
No.
he's saying it wrong. It's make like a tree and leave.
and leave. And leave.
It's make like a tree and leave.
Hello. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Tom Wilson added a lot of little nuances to this role that make him just as iconic as any part of this movie, and it's phenomenal.
This is maybe one of my favorite parts of Crispin Glover
Mhm.
is from the Marty showing up as the extraterrestrial from the planet Vulcan, which is so funny. Edward Van Halen demo instead of a Van Halen demo, because that was Eddie,
Yeah.
but it was not the rest of the band. But him like running, Marty, running across the street, and he's like writing down that's good, and his hair is all
This
over the
is good
place.
stuff. I'm writing it down.
And yeah, opening the Coke bottle for him, going into the diner, and the whole like, my density has popped me to you. And there is a moment there too where Lorraine does look at him like, I think I do like.
She kind of notices vulnerability a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah.
It's and then of course then Biff and Marty fuck it up again. Like
Yeah.
like they were on the path there to maybe we could do this, and
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. For me, probably being one of the coolest scenes of the movie from here on out, especially as a kid. This what the hell is that? Punches Biff, and then the skateboard around the
Yeah.
town square. Unbelievable. Such a cool scene.
Did kids back in the day bop to the music of the day while drinking milkshake? Like they were dancing
Yeah.
in the middle of the cafe or the milkshake shop or whatever. Did the kids do that back in the day?
I think the 50s are when that stuff when social interaction and
Was a thing.
Well, no, I think it was. I think that is when younger kids started being like, I have my own identity, and we want to do this. And think about it. Rock and roll is going to be invented soon here, if
Sure.
it hasn't already, I think. And that is when, like,
Women are starting to take
Yes.
more agency of themselves.
Yes,
yeah, you can
dudes.
tell definitely by Lorraine in this because she's, as we'll find out, like Marty is shocked by the amount of dick she wants to suck, which I support. She is thirsty as fuck for him, and I assume the other people that her dad hit. Like, no, I support it. I mean, I think it's great. Like, no, I legitimately, despite that joke, legitimately think that, yeah, I think that she represents a sense of agency that is lacklusterly represented in this time.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's really cool. But yeah, the chase scene is super dope.
I think it also is kind of a good point to make of why Lorraine's family thinks Marty is so strange. Because think about it, if it was a 1955 young boy going and was eating dinner with the parents and stuff like that. Oh, gee golly, yes, Miss Baines, that's a heck of a thing. You know, it's like you certainly are correct. Yes, sir. Like he'd be very swell and very like that's how he'd be talking. You know, very respectful in this idea of like meeting the parents. But
yeah,
but Marty talks in a way of the 80s,
Yeah.
right.
and it's like he's
an
very
idiot.
strange. Yeah, he's an idiot. Like he's not cultured. He's like, why is he wearing? It's like, well, that life preserver and all that stuff. And so, again, I think that kind of like what you're saying though too, going into that, this is a point where kids are finally starting to
sure.
do things, or it's also compared to today. Not a phone in sight. You know what I mean? Just kids being kids.
It is
Man,
pretty
to go
awesome.
back,
Hanging
you know?
out. They're just dancing in the restaurant
Just
and
being
having
present.
a good
Oh.
just being present. Just
in the past.
sipping on that milkshake and
Guys
sucking
being
that. Never
dudes
mind.
and girls being broads.
What a time.
Like, yeah, I think you're right. It's this is what they had to do to go enjoy themselves or have fun or let loose after school or
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
fun.
Lorraine is even more in love with Marty, and she asks him to the school dance. He says yes, but comes up with a plan for George to win Lorraine's heart. The night of the dance arrives. Marty and Lorraine kiss, but something is wrong. Just then, Biff shows up to get revenge on Marty. The gang throws Marty in a trunk, and Biff starts to take advantage of Lorraine. George arrives and rescues Lorraine by knocking out Biff. Marty is freed from the trunk and has to play guitar with the band to help make his parents kiss. Why could Marty not have just said no? Where's that plan come into place where he's like, okay, fine, I will say yes, and I will try to sexually assault my mom,
Like
to
it,
hopefully let my parents get together.
I guess it's like a sort of like power move to like he's got her
It's like she's never gonna not be in love.
Well,
with
like
me,
she
so.
knows where she's gonna be. Like, you know what I mean?
'Kay.
Like she knows
Keeping
he's
tabs.
gonna be with her, and so yeah, he can keep kind of tabs on her and make sure this happens.
He can cultivate the plan if he knows what's going on to some degree,
which
maybe.
is also the same kind of rhetoric that sounds like a very like undesirable individual.
Yeah.
Marty's still a 17-year-old kid, so like his brain's probably not working in the best possible way. But I didn't put that together when I was young that he was supposed to then try to take advantage. He thought his mom's such a square, he's going to try to take advantage of her, and he's going to be like, let's drink
You
and
think
let's smoke.
that's exactly what he thought?
I think he was assuming that if he made a move on Lorraine, that Lorraine's going to be like, no, don't.
Yeah.
Like he thought that, but clearly that was not going to happen.
No, she brought out the booze. She started smoking and shit.
Jesus, you smoke too?
That's why I think it's super cool. Like, I feel like she's a groovy chick.
Well, and this is another thing of I kind of read while going through some other reviews and whatnot is this. It's like this identity crisis, or everyone was a kid at some point, and Lorraine. She says in the very beginning that she never chased a boy. She never sat in a parked car with a boy or did anything like that. And the idea of her trying to cover it up, but that is in fact what actually happened. It's like this identity crisis that people have as they kind of go through life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with like George or like what you were saying with, would I have been friends with my dad? And we find out that Marty probably would not have been.
No.
Right.
He finds out his dad, and he even says, he's like, Jesus Christ, George, it's a miracle I was even born.
Yeah.
He's like, that kind of stuff. And what you go through to, say or be perceived by your kids or somebody else, as you go through life.
Well, it's also like very telling. Like he's nothing like his dad, pretty much, but he's a lot like his mom.
Maybe a lot more like his mom.
She's pretty hip and having
Strong
a good time. Yeah. She's very forthwith.
Yeah.
With everything. I think he's definitely more like his mom, and that's probably why they attracted or she was attracted to him, like kind of like that, and like
she was attracted to herself.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of like a mirror of herself. It's like, oh, this guy's happening in a far out way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
But then that is a cool moment that she comes on to him and they kiss, and she like immediately at that point she's like, no.
Yeah.
There was this weird cosmic force at play that was like, whoa.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
I've definitely that's happened to me. It's just like I'm super into this girl or something like that, and like we kiss, and it's just like, oh wait, we're super good friends, and this should just stay that.
It's like that, that untold force. Like, nope, that needs to not
or
happen.
you're my mom, and I just realized that.
So that was your daughter from the future that you were like, oh no, like that kind of a thing.
Okay, weird,
right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a fan theory. I hesitated to even say this one, but like she's in 1980s, she's like drinking heavily, and you see that she's like in this scene. Or in the basic timeline of her, like before Marty went back to the future, or back to the past, she's very like kind of affected, and also says to Marty like, I don't know why you're seeing that girl. She's not very this and she's not very that. I don't really see you guys with each other all that often. I think there's a fan theory out there that she's like really affected by the sexual assault,
because we're assuming it happened.
Yeah.
We're assuming that
because
Biff at some point did this to her.
Without the influence of Marty gaining confidence with George to stop that from happening, that actually happened.
Yeah.
And so anytime Lorraine is like, she's drinking heavily, she's kind of resentful of George and basically her whole family, and just kind of like you said in the beginning of this episode, like reliving that moment, and she just cannot get past it.
Right.
Kind of very dark.
Yeah.
Obviously, but in this case, obviously, thankfully, it is rectified.
George is having the time of his life in there, like dancing and drinking punch, and like you can tell how kind of aloof he is, and he's just like, oh, I forgot I have to go do something. But that moment is still when he opens that door and, hey, you get your damn hands up. And you can tell that old, uninfluenced George was gonna just walk away, just like he did on the dance floor. He's just gonna be like, "Oh golly, geez, I don't want to." But that is still such a satisfying moment when he actually that score goes, hits the ground, and when he turns and looks at it, man, that is this is chills how well they did that scene.
Almost like the kind of punch where like in a cartoon would spin the head off of the villain. You know,
are you okay?
Are you okay?
He
still has his notes. Are you okay?
It's like very you know, I think this adds to the overall tone of what Back to the Future really is, and in Back to the Future 3, kind of the final comment made by Doc Brown of things aren't written, you kind of write your own future. But some things, it seems like by what you're saying is some things were going to happen regardless. You know, all that time leading up to it, and even though Marty wasn't the one there, at some point Biff was going to take advantage of Lorraine, or these, you know, all those bad things leading up to it were going to happen, and the only thing that didn't change was that George didn't have the confidence to lay Biff out. And so that's a very interesting. I just like how that does eventually tie back into, you know, what they say later on of you know, the future's unwritten, but things are going to happen regardless. And then we see it happen, and you see it from Doc too when he's like, "Hey, he laid Biff out. He didn't know it. He never knew he had to. He's never stepped to Biff in his life." And he's like, "Never?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "Doesn't matter. That's fine.
Well,
we'll move on."
Even though we haven't really gotten to that scene, I think that's so important because Doc's not just one to be like, "Yeah, whatever." Like he's going to think about that moment for the next 30 years.
That shot is very synonymous because I really believe that that's the moment where he realizes that you can change history positively and not just negatively, you know. Where he discovers himself, where he's like, I think I could go back and kind of change some things for myself, and maybe that's what influences him to open up the letter from Marty.
Yeah.
Or put together the letter from Marty again.
Right. And I think we haven't talked much about the band.
Well, yeah, let's do the band talk so that we can do final scene.
Okay.
This may have been a quintessential moment in my life to want to get me to start playing music.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you got to get some, or people will start disappearing.
What?
Wait,
you know what I'm saying?
Can you say that one more time? You got to get some.
You got to get some,
or people will start.
disappearing. You got to fuck, or people in your pictures will start disappearing.
That's what you got from this movie?
That's what I got.
This is important.
And I was also thinking to myself as I was like writing that joke to myself, I was like, "Is that how incels think?" And then I couldn't participate in the rest of this movie.
And then you stopped. You just stopped watching.
I had to stop and fall asleep and then come back to it.
So are you saying that if George McFly didn't get any, he'd become like an incel, and then like
you start as a peeping Tom?
Yeah, he was heading down a wrong path.
He was going down the wrong path.
And then you start as a peeping Tom, you end as a incel John. I don't know.
And end up in a
whatever
bell tower or something.
Yeah.
So
yes, yeah.
Anyway, music.
Music. That scene was so great. I do really love this scene.
I do too. And to what you're saying, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like I can remember doing the one-legged like guitar thing, like at a wedding, at being a kid, right? Yep. And now I look back, I'm like, oh, I was such an idiot, little nerd
kid.
I was just a dumb kid. But then it's like, but I was doing that because you think of you hear Johnny Be Good, you think of Back to the Future, and you just think, oh yeah, like the guitar. Made me want to play guitar. It made me want to like perform. It made me think like it was a way to interact with people. That was a good way to do it.
I'm with you guys. I think it was this and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the parade scene.
Yeah.
Made me like really want to be in front of people performing something, going back and trying to dig deep. I think that these are the two things that affected me the most with that. But I also appreciate with Michael J. Fox, like they were like, do you know how to skateboard? He's like, oh yeah, I know how to skateboard. Like the other scenes, like the more intense skateboarding scenes, a stunt double had to be brought in, and he kind of choreographed a lot of those scenes as well. But the guitar scenes, he's playing that riff.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And like, you know, the rock and roll Chuck Berry, the dun 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 dun, you know, the reaching over with your pinky.
You believe he's playing every note on that.
He is. Like you can see he's right on the scale. He's also like on beat and on rhythm and everything, and like also doing like, I don't know if the slides and everything
go,
are
Johnny, go,
Yeah.
go.
I don't know if those they seem accurate to me. If he's playing the riff
the guy
correctly.
that's in the Pinheads that's playing bass guitar with the long blonde hair is a famous musician. I didn't recognize the name, but he was Marty's guitar coach in this whole movie to be like, he taught him how to play every riff. It's like, this is how you're going to do it, and we're going to run through this, and we're going to rehearse this.
That's
thing.
super cool.
Yeah.
That guy looks like a almost timid like
Tom
high
Petty?
school bass player.
Yeah, he does. Except the fact
Kinda
he looks like
stiff
he's 30.
yeah, that's that too. They had to put the hat and sunglasses on him and like
Yeah, bro.
But yeah, I totally believe that Michael J. Fox is playing all this stuff, even in the beginning with the pinheads and all that. It looks very real.
I believe he's singing that too, which is weird. Like you could convince me that that was him on the mic.
Same.
And I'd go, okay.
100%
As a kid, I
agree.
thought it was him, and today you could probably convince me that it was.
I think Huey Lewis made a very good decision in 1985 to not let Marty McFly's band play the dance, though. Because you get Marty on stage, and he's like, I got something good going on here. Let's just take it to the next level to where people do not like it anymore.
apparently their kids wouldn't have been ready for it.
No,
they wouldn't have.
No one's ready for that. Apparently, the kids were not ready for it because they didn't want him to play the dance.
But I do appreciate the direct correlation of Chuck Berry and Van Halen riffs right next to each other. I love that a lot.
I think that's genius. So that's like music appreciation 101 almost, is like watching the progression of what Chuck Berry did for music and then goes to like what Van Halen
doing
is
the
and
fucking tapping and shit.
And how he blended it in and all together and stuff. It's absolutely genius. The thing that doesn't necessarily blend in well though, when you watch this in HD, is this.
That for those listening, the invisible hand, George.
It's like that hand comes out of like over here.
He's like looking at a tennis ball that's like over here, but it's supposed to be right here. He's like,
Somebody else's hand.
So great.
It was like one of my like least favorite things. Like rewatching this was that hand, George. Yeah, and then you got.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Love it though.
Almost
and the way
every
he
time.
comes up on beat, he goes,
Yes.
He goes, Earth Angel. He's just back. He's,
mine.
And isn't that kind of cool that he was losing the ability to play the guitar because he wasn't knowing how to play the guitar?
True.
Because he was fading into nothingness. That's insane.
It's cool.
It's great writing. It's just the one special
Come
effect
on.
I had an issue
Come
with.
on, he could have
But
done
yeah.
a little better.
Exactly.
Every time I'm at a concert with, especially AJ, just stand next to him, I'm like, you know that new sound you've been looking for? Well, listen to this. I say it all the goddamn time. I
know.
love that.
Blues riff. I always go, this is a blues riff in B. Watch me for the changes and try to keep up.
up.
And anytime we play a song, dude, anytime we play a song live that there's no response to, I'm like, well, I guess you ain't ready for that, but your kids are going to love it. There's always one guy that's like, haha.
There's the A and the B riff. There's the A and the B riff, which are pretty much the same, and then the turnaround, and that's pretty much a blues riff.
You're good. And they did try to keep up, and they did well. That's a good backing band.
And again, what a testament to probably what musicians were back then. It wasn't about, I can watch some YouTube videos and play guitar. No, they were all like really great musicians.
You have to know what to do.
You have to know what to do for him to say it's a blues riff in B. It's like, okay, so we know it's going to be like kind of a minor vibe with in B. And it's like, okay, cool. We'll just watch you for what happens. And they did. And you're like, that's badass. Because that's exactly the way it would have been.
Yep.
Music nerding out so hard.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let's go back to the time travel. So Marty meets Doc, and after some intense situations, they are able to successfully send Marty back to 1985. He tries to save Doc from being shot, but is unsuccessful. He learns that Doc actually survived because he read Marty's letter and wore a bulletproof vest. Doc drops Marty off at home, and they use the time machine to head to the future. The next morning, it's clear that his family improved because of Marty's interactions in the past. Doc arrives with problems and takes Marty and Jennifer into the future.
Beautiful.
I have questions about this whole thing is where I start to have a lot of questions about like paradoxes and time travel, and like this they had a great Doc and Marty had we're assuming a relationship in the 1985 that they hung out all the time, and Doc built this guitar for him. But this week in time really puts their relationship back into like this whole upper echelon of relationships. Like, I'll see it like they love each other from this week that they spent in time, and Marty wants to save his life, and so like that makes me wonder like what was their relationship before this? Like, how did they? Now they're going to have this like, wow, this bond.
Yeah.
Doc's going to now want to keep tabs on his family and Marty and make sure things lead to where it needs to lead over the next 30 years. But how did that happen initially?
You know what? I think it's like I think that it was always that, but in 1980s time, it was more like Marty was like trying to move on and like move on to girls. Like he hung out with Doc a lot, probably, it seems. Like he helped him out or hung out with him a lot and like helped him out with his experiments and shit. But then also he's like, I don't think I can come, Doc. I'm gonna go hang out with Jessica. You know, I'm gonna go do this. I got some homework to do. Jennifer.
Which, by the way, that's a Freudian Rick and Morty slip right
yeah,
there.
I did that.
Because Rick and Morty is Back to the Future, and Jessica is Marty. I'm just throwing it out there.
But I think it's that. I think it's always been there. But like you go through like sort of a traumatic experience together, or like a life defining thing that you have to figure out together, and it kind of comes to fruition. And I really appreciate that. It's less like a fatherly relationship, father-son relationship. It's not even that. I don't think it's more of a friend, but almost more than a friend, but platonic relationship. I think it's like a life mate kind of relationship, and I really, really like that about it.
Absolutely. I always have a problem with time travel because it's the easiest thing to rabbit hole into and to overthink and to try to make some sort of sense of. And it's like, yeah, you could go back into the past and see your past, but how can you travel into the future and see your future self when you took yourself out of the present to go to the future? And there's this paradox, like you say, that it's just constant, that you try to understand, but then I think that's the point where you just have to say to yourself, just enjoy the story of what you're watching right now, and just allow it to be what it is.
They do a fantastic job of it, but you can still start going down a hole and going, what the hell? Again, to talk about how perfect this movie is, you know me, I like to use stopwatches on things. So for instance, there was 2 scenes I stopwatched. One was the minute that Einstein goes into the future at the beginning. It's supposed to be a minute, right? I timed it. It was a minute and 20 seconds. The 4 minutes until the lightning strikes the clock tower was 5 minutes. But I'm okay with it. Like I hate when movies are like, it's a 10-minute countdown. And 30 minutes go by. Where these felt, if you didn't time it, you could have assumed that this was exact timing on everything. Yeah. And, that's really hard to make 4 minutes be perfect in the story you want to tell.
This whole thing is super tense. Like, it's Spielberg level tense. Like, watching it made me think of Spielberg and the best of Spielberg and the best of Zemeckis, like that collaboration and Goonies and stuff like that. It's just pure suspense. Yeah. And but like suspense in like the fun way, where like, things are going to probably work out, but also you can't help but get affected by the tension that's been building. Absolutely. Because like this gets unplugged and then he plugs that in, but that gets unplugged. You've had that happen before in your life, you know? Like you're plugging this in and then the extension cord gets unplugged.
It's just on steroids in this instance.
It's really fucking, and then you're on a time limit.
Yeah. It's like we only have so much time, and I want to be able to tell this, like say this thing. I need to get this information out, but I have to leave. I've got to, like all that. It's really, really exciting in the end of all this. It's again, the timing of this, it has to be so perfect, and it's not perfect at all in the end too. But they still make it work. Well,
they leave you hanging.
Then they definitely leave you hanging.
They leave you hanging for a little while at least. Like it's a resolve, but there's also the question in the back of your mind, which is just such good fucking writing. It's ridiculous.
Here's a little perfect of we hate when continuity errors happen, and it's like, well, fuck, they didn't think about that. When Marty arrives back into 1985 and he runs over, actually before his car comes through, you see now that a helicopter flies over the courthouse.
Buck Flowers is there as a homeless guy.
Yeah, right. His name's he calls him Red, by the way. I'm like, was that the mayor? Was that Mayor Red Wilson? It wasn't. But the helicopter flies over the courthouse, and there is a missing piece of the ledge where Doc slipped.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
And broke the ledge up there.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too. I looked for it the last time that I did it because I was like, wait a second. Is it still
there? Did they fix it?
And it's still there in number 2, by the way.
Awesome.
Yes. So.
Yeah, and I feel like Doc would have had some questions to be asked because remember the cop comes by and is like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Oh, very sophisticated weather experiment." So the cop knows about this. Just so happens that Doc was messing around with wires that were attached to the clock tower, and then lightning strikes it. Don't you think the cops are going to come around and start asking, be like, "Dude, weren't you doing some weather experiment?"
I don't think any crimes happened back in the 1950s.
No, and it actually looked like maybe Doc goes, "Of course I have a permit," and it looks like he's pulling out his wallet. Is he bribing that
I think
cop?
he's like bribing the cop.
Oh,
because he opens it up like the cash compartment of his, and maybe you can keep other things other than cash in there, but he definitely opens it up and he's like, let's see, it's around here somewhere, I thought the same thing. Like, is he bribing that cop? Very well could have been.
I
but
like it.
You're right. It's like how do they back then? They're only going to think, well, Doc Brown caused the lightning strike because he attached more electric conductivity things to the
that could have been
tower.
Interesting.
So I don't know. You're right. It's but when he goes back, why does he only give himself 10 minutes?
I got a time machine. I got all the time I want.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
You said it yourself.
You said 10 minutes. Did you not think about how long it takes you to go from like the porn theater to?
And remember the last
the
time
mall?
you went back in time, the DeLorean died.
Yeah, remember?
It wouldn't really drive anymore, so
Yeah.
you had to run where you wanted to go.
Super weird.
Did you hear the theory, the dark Rick and Morty type theory of so second, think about it this way. The past has been altered, so now Marty's parents are in a better place and they have better personalities, and we're assuming that this will transform into Marty becoming a different person,
Mm-hmm.
having a different personality moving forward. So there's a theory that Doc knows this, and he now knows this. Now Doc knows there was two different things happening here, and we think that the Marty in now the new reformed Marty is actually kind of a shithead and not that great of a Marty, and that there's a thought that when Marty comes back to time and watches that other DeLorean go into the past, that Doc actually was sending that DeLorean and Marty to be killed.
Wow.
To not take new shithead Marty into the past to then maybe possibly ruin what they had already done, because now Marty's going to the past and he's a different Marty to try to keep his parents together.
So he's a more humble Marty at that point, is what you're saying.
I don't know, or he's not as good of a Marty because he's got everything handed to him his whole life. We're just saying that this Marty's different, and the theory is that Doc doesn't want a different Marty to go back in time, so he actually is killing this Marty. He's sending him somewhere to where the DeLorean will never get back, or that they're like going into infinite space and burning up and blowing up somewhere.
Oh, I see.
So that the only Marty left now is this same Marty.
This new kind of reformed Marty.
This Marty that has come back in time from the 50s. It's kind of fucked up.
Wow.
It's kind of fucked up to think about.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that Marty's different.
That Marty is different. Okay.
Because he does see himself, and he does see himself take off.
Yeah.
And so that Marty is going to be
We're
killed.
thinking that they're going to, because then there'd be two Martys back in the 50s.
Right. Because if he goes, yeah.
That's right.
And see, there again becomes the new
See,
another paradox.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what
it's like. Because like if time can, it's so fucked
I know.
up.
We can do a whole nother.
So
we can talk more about this on the Patreon episode, I think. But there's like some crazy thoughts too. There's another thought that his parents, like, okay, I asked my mom and dad this. I said if you had met 40-year-old me when you back in the 50s, would you know that it was me? Like, would you then have me as a kid and be like, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
And they're both like, no. Like they knew Marty for 1 week.
Right.
And like you can't remember that. And then you can't go, oh, there's no photo
I was just
evidence.
gonna
There's
say.
no
Right,
photos.
right.
There's none of that stuff.
Did they see a picture? Did they take a picture of him? Did anything like this
There's
ever
definitely
happen?
not a yearbook
Yeah.
photo of him at all.
Any evidence that could have happened or something like that shows or as a reminder of what he looks
Yeah.
like? And honestly, the only person who would really actually remember what he looks like is Biff. And that is it.
Oh.
Because
I got
Biff
you.
Biff's life is turned upside down by
Yes.
this person. And
But-
one thing that will drive it is definitely that.
But did Marty actually turn Biff's life around for the better? Look at shitty old Biff from the beginning of the movie. He looks terrible. He's drunk driving. He does not look great. He's just like a guy at an office.
Yep.
New Biff,
New Biff.
He's pretty
he
happy.
owns his own business.
That's right.
So are we happy with this? Are we glad that Marty came into his life
That's a good
as
point.
Biff Tannen?
Technically, Biff is better for it now. He looks healthier.
He does.
Uh,
Seems pretty happy.
You know, he seems pretty happy. He's got his, like you say, he's got his own business. He's got what appears to be kind of a friend, and now George.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, he is waxing his car. He calls him Mr. McFly, but
Too close to wax.
he's
Now Biff.
now Biff, don't con me.
I just
Yeah, Biff, always a kidder.
But they do think that maybe the only person that would know who Marty was is actually George, because George would have then a couple, like as time went on, he would have heard. He's a science fiction nerd. He would have seen Star Wars. He would have seen Star Trek, and he would have been like, "I've heard those names before."
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, and like I feel like George is smart enough to like maybe put this together, and that maybe George knows. Because George kind of gives him a look, like the whole, like maybe George bought him this truck, and like in a thankful way,
Especially
maybe
as
George
he's-
is saying like, I know, I love you,
Especially as he's like caressing
Yes.
Lorraine as he's watching him and
and Jennifer.
Jennifer.
And he's
Not
basically
Jessica.
saying, I'm going to give this kid what he wants because
Yeah.
he gave me what I want. He put the things together over the last 30 years to be like, my son went
Wow.
back in time. Maybe Doc told him.
There's also a fan theory.
Because
Speaking of
wait,
Biff-
hold on. Maybe
Oh, sorry,
keep
sorry.
it. Maybe Doc told him and was like, dude, don't move from your current house because Marty's going to come home and he's going to assume that you still live in the same house. Don't I don't know.
Maybe Doc played into it.
Maybe
a little
Doc's
bit more.
like, dude, we
Ah,
changed
yeah,
the
yeah,
past.
yeah.
You're a smart guy, science fiction
He-
guy. You need to know about this.
He did some, or he even did it a little bit behind the scenes with George.
Yeah.
To kind of like breadcrumb him into
Okay.
following
Figuring it
down a
out.
certain path.
Yeah.
Right. Like
match,
yeah.
and then maybe that's what his book's about. Match made
Well,
in heaven,
and that
or
was
space.
If you look at the cover of the book, it has a boy and a girl and an alien that looks like
yep.
Marty when he was dressed up in the suit, and in between them, bringing them together. And there you go,
Just
a
saying.
match made in space.
Have you guys heard that maybe Biff knows about this secretly? There's a fan theory out there that Biff is
Way.
secretly onto Marty being a time traveler. And so he gets all these clues while he has his interactions with him. He wasn't there during the Johnny B. Good cover or the Johnny B. Good performance.
Right.
He wasn't there, but we can assume that people talked about it maybe a little bit, and he was told about it. And then a few years later, Johnny B. Good or Chuck Berry comes out with Johnny B. Good.
Mm-hmm.
The skateboard wasn't invented yet. And so he like takes off the scooter pretty much those weren't invented yet, I don't think either. But he takes off the scooter, makes it as a makeshift skateboard.
Right.
And he's skateboarding through the town and getting away from Biff. And also, he kind of he installs himself into this family, into the McFly family to get closer to them. And then eventually, because he has this theory that they're involved somehow.
Okay.
And so eventually they have a child who looks a lot like Calvin Klein that
Yeah.
he knew back in the day. And so he kind of follows Marty, Calvin Klein,
Mm-hmm.
into the second movie.
I see.
And that's where the second movie comes from, is where he knows he's a time traveler and knows about the sports almanac.
I see.
I actually would have, had I not. I found a podcast today when I was driving home that was it's like a Back to the Future podcast.
Of course.
Yeah, and I just found out about it. So I found one. It's like this guy was analyzing some YouTube video that was talking about 4 fan theories that must be true.
Probably the one I
And
got.
that was one of them.
That exact one.
But
from.
but I would have agreed. I would have been like, dude, that's a great theory. But then when this guy then analyzed it, it's like no, fuck that. It's he says the same thing that we all just said about his parents. Biff is not gonna know what Johnny Be Good is from the description of people. And like, this was 1 week in time, you know, like, think about 30 years ago. Like, you guys just turned whatever. Go 15 years ago and try to remember like one experience you had with one person over the course of a week or something like that you never saw again. Like, that's hard to think that Biff would have put all that together and remembered all that.
If I was obsessed with something 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't be obsessed with it today.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I don't know. If it had to do with music, Biff wasn't into music.
No, he didn't give a
I'm
shit.
super into music, so I probably would have remembered a thing like that. You know, it's like, you have to hear this new sound.
What was that conversation like? Biff, were you at the dance? Did you hear that song that Calvin Klein played? Like,
Fuck that.
No, can you explain it? Well, it was like loud and fast. He's like, okay.
I don't care. I'm going to beat this motherfucker Calvin Klein. That's all he's singing about.
Exactly.
That's all I care about. He caused $300 damage to my car.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it out of his ass.
Take it out of his ass. No, I love this movie. Probably has the most fan theories.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can give validity to every one of them.
Yeah,
and
I
go,
think they're
"This is
all
fucking
apt.
dope."
I think that they're super fun to think about, every single one of them.
If you go into it and just want to break it down with your buddies, you can kill a whole evening
I think
just
we'll do it on the Patreon
breaking it
episode.
on down, right? I can't wait.
Let's do it.
So,
What do you think? Is that it? Have we stripped away all
I
the
think
nostalgia?
that's it.
Looked
So.
at this movie with a modern eye. We have to give it our current day rating. A-Day, what do you think?
it's still incredibly rewatchable. I don't think I ever got bored with it, even in rewatching for our research and everything. Although it's not my personal favorite of the trilogy and everything, that being said, I still think it's probably the best one, objectively. So, I love being able to debate this stuff, with you guys, and talk about all the fan theories, and it just opens up this endless amount of conversation possibility, and all the information behind it is super interesting, and I think it's some of the smartest writing, and it's absolutely an iconic movie. I do think that the original Back to the Future is a 9.6.
Wow.
9.6 from AJ. Shaun, what do you got, man?
I agree with everything AJ said. I hate that he has to go first because everything he says he articulates way better than me.
He's a nice young man.
Very much so. No, I definitely agree. It is such a great script, and it's 2 hours long. We always say this on the podcast where it's like, if you're going to be 2 hours long, you cannot be boring even for a minute.
Yep.
This movie is not that at all. Super entertaining from start to finish. All the acting is incredible. Even the research that goes into this rewatch affects me a little bit. Knowing how this got made is super inspiring, really. Like the recasting your main character. This movie should not have worked at all. And I think it does. Man, it's Back to the Future, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck? It's 8.5 for me.
8.5 for Shaun. I love this movie. I really do think I've seen it the most. I think it holds up more than probably any movie that we'll ever do on this podcast. I'm not prepared to give it a 10. I do like to give a little space there because we will get into there. I was starting to think about maybe what other movies I might think are better than this, and there might be some out there. I just don't know yet. So I got to give it a little bit of room. But as far as the movies we have done, this is the best movie we have done on this podcast. I'm a 9.6 as well. Our executive producer, Bud Larsen, said this was a family watch for me. We own the trilogy. I've seen all 3 movies, played the video game, which is terrible, by the way, on NES. my wife and I had seen it, but my 8-year-old had never seen it. I remember Marty going to Twin Pines Mall in the beginning of the movie. Then at the end, it being named Lone Pine because he ran over one of the pines back when he left the barn in 55. I remember thinking driving 88 miles per hour would have automatically taken me back in time. I do remember thinking that. If that was the case, I'd go back in time every day going to work. Some of the funniest parts for us was when he was in the hazmat suit in the barn and in his dad's bedroom, and they thought he was an extraterrestrial. Kind of funny that Doc did a test on his pet first to see if it would work. I never really understood why Marty, a high school-age kid, hangs out with this old scientist. Was he a family friend? Did people really write their name on their underwear? A different time, I guess. This movie was very easy for my kid to understand and comprehend. It was a fun family night watching the movie. We would definitely watch this again. Most punchable face would have to be Biff. My wife's pick was Principal Strickland.
Nice.
It's a good one. My son and I agree our prop would have to be the DeLorean. That's too easy,
You
okay?
got
But
to.
you
You
got to
got
have
to.
it. My wife said Marty's purple underwear. My modern day rating would be a 9. So that takes us to a 9.18. If you look at every movie we have done, that is not number 1. We got Dazed and Confused at a 9.5, Breakfast Club at a 9.26, and then Back to the Future at a 9.18, followed by Terminator 2 at 9.16.
Where's Goonies lay?
Goonies is number 7, 8.66.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
By the way, everybody out there, you can go to our brand new website, Confused Breakfast, and you can see all these ratings, our individual ratings, our group ratings. We figured by now it's time to nice and check out a reference and go see all that stuff. So we have done it. We hope you enjoyed. Thanks for being here on our longest episode. We knew it was going to be that way. A bunch of great movies coming up. Next Wednesday, we are doing Aliens.
James Cameron's Aliens.
Plural.
So check out the sequel to Alien.
We just got to
I
make
just
sure we
wanna
say
be
that right.
very clear here.
Wait a minute. And then we were following this up by a movie chosen directly by our Patreon members, Hook. We are finally getting to Hook.
Good job, guys.
And we know we haven't done as much scary stuff this season. It was so hard to pass up the fact of releasing this episode on Back to the Future present day. So if you want to go back this time last year, Ernest Scared Stupid is an awesome episode.
Check it out.
Halloween based. You're going to love that. And don't forget, we have a voicemail call, 319-804-9596. Leave us some feedback like today's caller.
Hello, Confused Breakfast Podcast. This is Brynna Shelton. Loving the podcast. Been listening to it since Home Alone. I cannot wait till Back to the Future. That is my favorite movie. Every time you mention it, I get a little bit of a chill. I'm like, oh, it's coming. But I request more bad movies.
Okay.
There's something about listening to you guys slightly in pain having to talk about bad movies that just warms my heart. And I request Super Mario Brothers
from
1993, starring Bob, Who Framed Roger Rabbit Hoskins.
Yeah, man.
And John the Pest Leguizamo.
Yep.
I believe that's how you say it. Anyways, keep up the good work. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, brother.
You're awesome.
I had to play that voicemail on this one because we're assuming you've made it this far.
Yeah.
And hopefully we did it justice. Like I think we could probably do a whole nother episode on this and talk about stuff we
have
didn't
been
get to.
teasing Super Mario Brothers for way too long now in just our personal conversations and everything. And with the new one coming out, maybe it is time.
It might be time to jump on in.
AJ, take us out. Let's get out of here, man.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you just leave us a review. You can write us a review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars anywhere else or anywhere you're listening to it. It's the Confused Breakfast on any platform, but also Confused Breakfast. Search for us on social media, just at Confused Breakfast on just about any social media platform. And, of course, confusedbreakfast.com. Find us there.
ConfusedBreakfast.com. You can also go there and get our shirts, or any kind of merch you want, some mugs. I think we got some hats. We got maybe some hoodies and everything like that. You can get some koozies, I think.
You can get it all.
Shower curtains.
You can
a
get
ton of
shower
stuff.
curtains.
Mouse pads.
Just get our merch and put our names on your bodies. I don't care.
Yeah. Also, if you want to support this, share this podcast. Share. You know people that love this episode. Share it to them. Hit the little share icon. Go to patreon.com/confusedbreakfast to join us. Directly support. You get to vote on upcoming movies. You got like 90 hours of backlogged bonus audio now. You've got a private Discord service. Those are the best ways to support us. Also, go buy stuff from our sponsors. That is number one. And this podcast is produced by our buddies LAS Media Group here in Cedar Rapids.
Oh, yeah.
Go check out them, lasmediagroup.com for more. We are grateful for them, and we are going to go away.
Back in time. Don't even play it. Just play us doing it.
Back in time. Back in time.
Okay, fine.
Jesus.